Meet Me in the Bunker, episode 97. Yes, we are almost up to 100, and I've got to do 100 because Tucker Carlson's at 101, and he started way after I did. So we're going to be doing a few more of these. But today we've got a really special podcast because I've got Jason here, and he is going to give us a presentation. And everybody on Twitter knows Jason. Well,
I hope not.
Not everybody on Twitter, but everybody that follows Jason knows his work, knows what he's been working on. And as it is in the description, you can see we are going down the corrupt path of the Bidens today with Jason's help. And what we're trying to prove here at the moment is that no matter what you see Jamie Comer, Jim Jordan, all of these people doing in these committees, they are still grifting. None of this has stopped. None of this has stopped. I don't know if anybody remembers back to when Joe Biden was inaugurated and the family came, not when he was inaugurated, rather when he was announced, and it was announced officially that he was the president, and the whole family came up on stage. Hunter Biden came up on stage and looked straight into the audience and gave somebody the thumbs up. Somebody realized, just as he did, just as I did, and just as Jason did, that the grift was on again. And it hasn't stopped. It's probably worse than it was before because they've learned from their mistakes and they're freaking hiding it. But as we always say, follow the money and you'll find the criminal. Now, we know who the criminals are. We know where the money is going, but where's it coming from, right?
Yeah.
So that is why today we have Jason Powers, aka DCF Press. So he's here to tell us. He's been deep diving into all of this for months and months and months. And so we are going to walk through it. And hopefully anybody that's out there that's watching will be enraged enough to call their personal, their local politicians and tell them that this is not ended yet and it needs to end. And they are the only people that can end it, because we can do all the hard work for you. Jason's doing all the hard work for you, but you guys have got the legislative power and the power to put these people behind bars, and you're not doing it. So we need to enrage you, we need to anger you, and we need to make you realize that this is coming out of your pocket, your family suffering because of what the Bidens are doing. So without any further ado, Jason, introduce yourself and let her rip.
Okay. So my name's Jason Powers. I didn't start off hunting down the Hunter grift. Obviously, I started working, graduated from Purdue University in 1996, just giving you a high level of this. Industrial engineering, worked in industrial engineering, worked in both high positions in Fortune 500 companies and I guess you could say the low end of the scale in terms of life and reality. We all take our bumps and bruises, but you learn something from those things. And so as of 2020, I was working as an industrial engineering contractor and consultant. I've been doing that for a few years prior to that, different companies. One of the companies I worked for was a CHI overhead door out in Illinois. They're owned by KKR, another big conglomerate that many may remember hearing about back in the 1980s, because RJR Nabisco was one of their targets, and in 1988 they completed the largest at that time leveraged buyout, and that was done by KKR, which is Kohlberg, Kravitz, and Roberts. So anyway, that was a kind of like the last really big entity that I got familiar with. I guess you could say, the destruction of things in America. It kind of changed my point of view about a lot of things at that time. And going into 2019, I started doing more independent research, and I wrote like a book in regards to that reality. And I was working on that, and I was looking to get back into another position as of January 2020. But like everybody else, 2020 turned into a,
Shit
very
show.
shit show for all of us. Yes. There you go. That's the right word. Shit show is the correct word. So
It's the only word.
yeah. So by October 2020, that's when we became very aware of Hunter Biden's laptop and different things that had come out of that. And later on, I got a small piece of that laptop in 2021, and I could see all the crimes or let's just say, all the entertainment with women he was doing. Matter of fact, that came out later on. About 15% of the money he spent for about 6 years went directly to, as they termed it, other women in accounting purposes. So beyond that, though,
They're really,
and
they're really
yeah,
creative with their accounting, aren't they?
yeah, it was like $700,000 out of 4.9 million that he managed to hoover in, at least according to his tax filings. But we also know he took in about another $6 to $8 million to the Chinese Communist Party through CEFC. It wasn't directly from Xi Jinping, but the director Zhang, and as we'll find out about a guy named Xiaoping Rick New, and
Rick New, the
this is
man of mystery. What's he? The man of mystery.
He's the name that you never have heard about because they always talk about Bob Alinsky and Hunter's partners and Joe. But Rick New has been making lots of visits to the White House, and as a matter of fact, that's where we're going to start there. So further ado, as you would say, I'll share the screen and
I'll
start with
presentation mode up. Hopefully, it'll click over. There we go. So hope everybody can see that.
Okay. Yep. So let's see if I got this all the way down. Okay. So this is the matrix. When I say matrix of actors, okay. The big thing, 2020 was a busy time actually for Hunter Biden's crew here. So Hunter Biden's down here at the bottom. And in 2017, they were kicking around different deals that were run through CEFC's cutouts, which were Rick New and Jaiki Bao, and they're in the center of the page here. I wish I had a highlight or a pointer here, but it says CEFC point people right in the center of the screen. So Rick New is to the left. Yeah.
Rick
and
New,
Jaiki Bao.
this guy here. I'm pretty sure everyone can see my.
Yeah,
they can probably see yours as well. So just where
I can bring him up a little bigger.
Yeah, where Jason's mouse is. So if you want to explain who,
there. Okay, you can't see him.
Got him.
Yeah, Rick New. So Rick New. Okay, so Rick New here is the guy who was actually coordinating what they termed as Project White Light, and I will switch over to the tab where that. So I'll share this tab instead. This is these. I could never have done this without Marco Polo. Marco Polo is Garrett Siegler.
So kudos to Marco Polo, Garrett Siegler, who has put the Hunter Biden files into a book form, and they are also on the website at marcopolo.com if you are interested in having a look for yourself. So Jason's just got some files out from that.
Yeah. So this was just a search result. So as you see, Project White Light here. Now this is a key to what they were working on, and you see names like James Gilliard, Rick New, and you see where he works. He works for Star Companies, which goes back to, if I go back to this tab here for a second. So Rick New has been working for Star Company, working directly for Maurice Greenberg here, who used to be the CEO of AIG. And for those who have some historical reference there, AIG got $185 billion from the U.S. government back in 2007, 2008, well, really 2008, as a bailout at the time for their credit derivatives that they screwed up. And they had to bail them out because that's how much money they owed.
during the GFC.
Yes,
Yeah.
the great financial crisis. So anyway, Greenberg had left in like 2006. Rick New followed him from AIG over. Eventually, he worked for another insurance company, but then he followed Greenberg over to Star Companies in like 2012, 2013. So he's they've known each other since the late 1990s. And Greenberg is a big supporter. He actually gave $5 million to Jeb Bush. But to get off that subject for a second,
$5 million
these two in the
to
middle,
Jeb
though,
Bush
are
for what?
the big
For his presidential run.
Yeah, in
Okay.
2016. Yep, that's exactly. So the failed Bush, and Rick New also gave to Mike Pence a few $1,000s or whatever. So
Oh,
anyway, and
that's
we're
news.
gonna, yeah.
That's
Oh
news
well,
even to me.
yeah. Well, yes. Well, yeah. And
Excuse me, I'm
so
swatting
he does
flies.
have a Twitter account. Okay, sorry. So I do have his Twitter profile. So this is one of Rick News reposts, and this is right around November 2020. So he congratulates Joseph Biden for his president election. So Committee of 100 is a pro CCP outlet. And so when I highlight this, you see that it says encouraging, constructive relations between the U.S. and Greater China.
Greater China.
Isn't that telling how they term Greater China? What is Greater China? Is that Taiwan and China? Is it greater as in great?
as in it's
Greatest
greater than
China?
everybody. We're great.
Yeah. So that gives you an idea who he was dealing with in regards to this. And I'm gonna go back to this tab real quick. I'm laying the foundation here with Rick New because he's key to this whole. He's the lock that picks the key to this entire diorama. So his last email to Hunter was about a week before Hunter's laptop went kablooey, and Rick New, and you see he was very communicative in 2017, and then they just went silent in 21 time in 2018 and 2019. You click on this one, so Rick knew directly to his iCloud account, so this had to go through Apple. This wasn't directly to his regular account. I noted your father's latest comment, and of course it's tied to the presidential run. So just letting you know that was a week before. So Rick just randomly out of the blue contacted him, but that isn't the only person who just contacted him out of the blue. I want to pull up Jaiki Bao here. She's kind of important too, because she's the one who picked the projects that wound up being pulled into. Let's see if I get her name right. I can never spell her name worth a damn, so don't mind me. And sometimes this thing doesn't read
Jaiki
right.
Bao.
Wow, I mean,
I don't know if anybody's sort of familiar with the laptop episode, but there was some emails there that when things were winding up, she was sending Hunter emails that were saying to him, "Oh, you're such a great guy, and this and that and the other, and it's not fair what they're doing to you, and you should take all of this money out before they take it." So this Jaiki Bao was actually advising Hunter when things were getting hot. She was telling him to cut and run, and giving him the details to all of the cash funds, correct?
Yes. So there's two emails. Well, the email you're talking about with the money wrapping up items last administrative. So she, this was just 6 months after she basically took the position to help out Hunter with Chinese interests. So this was March 28th. It's a long email, but it basically talks about taking the money. But then this is the email I'm talking about here with the March 14th. So this was just a couple of days after Rick New had contacted. So this is an influence operation that took place, because she writes this long letter to Hunter, talks about how it'd be so wonderful if Joe Biden gets, happy spring, blah, blah, blah. You need to help Uncle Joe run for president. Your father should really run, blah, blah, blah. And I forget what she said something like, this would be really good for our country or whatever. I think she's talking about the Chinese. It'd be so good for China if Joe got in office.
Yeah, she
So
probably
she writes
was.
this huge note, and she attaches a couple attachments here. I don't know what the attachments say, but nevertheless, she had a lot to say suddenly out of the blue. And this was right a couple days after Rick New contacted, and then Hunter's laptop suddenly doesn't function any better, and he takes it into the. That's where he gets sent to what do you call it? The guy out there in Delaware. I can't even right off the top of my head. I can't forget his name because I mean he's kind of
McIsaac.
Yes. He's got the 3 name thing. Yeah, and that's pretty bad. People are like, well, how can you? He's kind of relevant, but he isn't. He's not relevant to this. He just happened to have a laptop, and it just happened. It's what got done after he let go. So this is the one where he talked about she starts talking about the money and stuff, and wherever turning over stuff. So she's just she's something else. She wrote a lot of crazy
she's even
emails,
written in that she's even written in that email that she's going to delete everything, restore to factory settings the computer. So taking care of business, we're going to wrap up the loose ends.
So here's one of her more famous ones. Hunter as ambassador of U.S. LNG. All U.S. LNG projects. So, she was buttering him up the whole time. So this just gives you an idea of what she's like. So, okay. So, and I'll share this tab as them. So this diorama though is kind of it's central to these 2 characters. So she pitched the 2 LNG projects, Magnolia and Texas. Now we're going to get into the details after just a little bit on Rick New. So I show here off to the left, actually the northwest here with the White House December visit. And Rick New has been he's been doing a lot of one-to-one conversations at the White House with top Biden officials and advisors. So this is Mike Donlin is the guy here, second from where my cursor is. He's one of Joe's main men, and this is his daughter. So Rick New visited his daughter in December of 2022. This was right around the time that Glenn Farm was wrapping up some key SEC filings. And then Rick's 2023 deal was to talk with two people in particular, but he talked specifically with this guy named Kurt Campbell, who's now second in charge over at the State Department, right behind Tony Blinken. And he's connected to Victoria Nuland, and they were both part of the Center for a New American Security. Sorry, Century. I got that on my mind because of Victoria, but they're simpatico.
Yeah.
And Rick New knows David Petraeus through LinkedIn, and he knows and this guy named Glenn Miles here, who happens to employ or has as a chief advisor R. James Woolsey, who is also a director of the CIA. So you'll see on this little diorama, there's 3 directors of the CIA on here. So they should just give you an idea of the level of mendacity. I guess would be the good liars and cheats. And
that word's been thrown around quite a bit lately.
Yeah. So there are a lot of evil people involved. So I'll go down here so you get a kind of high level summary here, and then we can move on from there. So Magnolia, like I said, is acquired.
I'm going to shut up and let you go through it.
Glenn Farm. Okay. And it's pretty quick. So Magnolia, was acquired by Brendan Duvall from Glenn Farm for $2 million. It did so happen to be that there was a $75 million bid put in by a company out of Singapore, which if we hang around a little later, that might become very important because of some of the Singaporean connections I found as well. So First Wall Street is run by Glenn Miles. He has 3 advisors that are all connected to Biden, either directly. Sullivan here will go down as a federal judge. He was appointed by Herbert Walker Bush. He also worked in intelligence back in the late 80s. Actually, he's military intelligence. Glenn Miles, he's friends with Bill Clinton. He's taking pictures with him. Michael Milken. Michael Milken, of course, was the junk bonds king of the 1980s. Went to prison for 10 years, but he only did 2. He paid a $600 million fine. So, and Mr. Miles, he's on the board of, he's on actually the Ukraine-U.S. Council with Woolsey. They got appointed to that in July of 2019 as they were also headed up a board called for Velta, which is a titanium company. So, and there's pictures with Miles with Zelensky as early, like I said, as early as March of 2022. So like 2 or 3 weeks after the invasion by Russia, Miles is talking with Zelensky. So fairly important guy, but it's a boutique investment capital company that's located at 399 Park Avenue, floor 2. And they share the same office floor as Star Companies where Rick New works. So our James Woolsey, as I've mentioned, CIA under Clinton, just so happened that he was a unpaid advisor for the Flynn Group. There you go. And he later sabotaged Michael Flynn because of his work and discussions regarding Turkey. So there's a lot of geopolitical situations that are involved with this whole control of energy policy, control of the companies that the U.S. State Department wants to control and manipulate, and or keep in their what would you say, paddock or barn, so to speak.
In case fire.
Eugene R. Sullivan. Yeah. Yes. So Sullivan works at Freed, Sporkin and Sullivan. If you know the name Freed, he was the former FBI director. He was doing a lot of emailing alongside Louis, both these two guys, in regards to Beau Biden's death, but also he winds up getting $100,000. Freed gives $100,000 to Beau Biden, but they had private meetings, like actual discussions in Washington, D.C., but it just so happens that Freed, Sporkin and Sullivan has a law firm that's located really close by First Wall Street Capital. It's like 2 blocks away. So a lot of these things we'll get to the map later, but close proximity. So, if you're going to run a crime operation, you might as well have everybody in a one-stop shop. This guy was relatively unknown to me early on, but he came back into play because I found out that he's a partner at Kane, Russell, Coleman, and Logan. And just so happened that this Kane, Russell, Logan provided services for a short-term, like totally, unremarkable name, Global Energy Megatrend. They were only alive for like 9 months. They were incorporated, like I said, September 2019. They made a bid on Magnolia for $2.25 million and actually received it, according to, and secured the bid. But then they backed out just as soon as they said they were going to buy this entity, and then it got passed on to Glenfarne. As it turns out, that the next guy, William Marston Miller, he actually knows Hunter Biden through emails through a United States senator's son, which was a guy named works for Steptoe and Johnson, called Hunter Johnston. Kind of a weird name. So 2 Hunters involved there. So this guy he's kind of shady. He was actually he appeared in a Time magazine article that was meant to sabotage Trump and his former Secretary of Energy, Rick Perry. So that's where he kind of falls into the scope of things. As we mentioned, Xiaoping Rick knew, and I just went through some of his emails, and it just so happens that he's who he works for. And it turns out Rick New lives in Scarsdale, New York. He lives about a mile from the CEO of Glenfarne, which is Brendan Duvall. If we go back up to this thing, he's the bald-headed guy here at the top here with the lobbying thing. So he runs the operation, top
left of just top right of the screen.
He has a look. Yeah, where it just says Scarsdale, New York. So yeah, he's supposedly the head guy. He's an Australian, and we'll get to him in a second. But yeah, him and Rick New live in the same town, and they live about a mile from each other. Jaiki Bao, as I mentioned, she tried to be Hunter's love interest, and there's a 17-page presentation that actually was shown by Representative Comer at a press conference, but nobody paid a whole lot of attention. But I'll show the presentation here, just a little bit of it, not much of it. So this is what Comer and his buddies. So you see, Hudson West was the entity that Hunter bought. It was Hunter West number 3, and it was being financed by CEFC. And so these are just you see shale plays, you see all these different things. They're translated into Chinese. This was, like I said, 2017. This was done by Jaiki, and she did this across
So
the scope of
these are what?
And then
These
she
are
selected, or at
identifying.
least she told Hunter these are the LNG projects that he should look at.
I was just say, so these maps
Yeah.
are
So you see 20.
identifying. They're identifying places that they should be investing in or looking at investments in, or is that where they've already
Well,
invested?
they're actually, like, this is identifying how much. No. This is identifying. Okay, so in this case, is identifying when these projects are supposed to go hot. Like you see, Freeport 2, Cameron LNG T3. I could probably blow this up a little bit bigger so you can see what I'm talking about. So
yeah,
I can't translate Chinese, obviously.
no,
I don't know
me
what
neither.
that is, but it gives a timeline here down at the bottom when these things are supposed to kick over. Yeah.
Right.
But the part that caught my eye, and she mentions this later on. So you see the volumes she's seeing. She putting all these numbers here. So whatever the numbers are, but here's where we get into the LNG part of it. So she lays out who owns them and the liquefaction technology they use and all this. What's their maximum? So this is millions of tons per annum or per year, and then who the owners currently are. So you see here owners Chineri, who Hunter was dealing with, and actually Chineri, he wrote a special letter to Chairman Yi Jiamin, who was the CEO of CEFC, and a lot of people have heard of Patrick Ho more than they've heard about Yi Jiamin. So these were the various projects that were available to select from, and this one highlighted in orange was one of the ones. This is one of the ones that she was like, yeah, we should go for this one. And she also mentioned Texas LNG. I think it's on the next page here, at the bottom here. So that was a different one. And these are the two entities that Glenfarne Group, or currently it's called Glenfarne Energy Transition, but it just know it as Glenfarne Group because their website's kind of cheesy. It's very low key. It's like, they're not trying to make a lot of waves, but they're making a lot of deals. So anyway, we'll go back to the main. So I share this. So that's what Jaiki was doing for Hunter. That was her specific things. Alongside, Hunter was getting lots of lawyers that he knew, because he has a huge Rolodex of lawyers, and a lot of them are very shady, corrupt. Some of them have got legal allegations put against them and whatnot. Of course, if you're going to do bad things, you reach out to the people that are most likely to be able to do that for you. So this fellow, I don't know if he actually did what Jaiki wanted, but she mentioned him by name in one of the emails, saying he should, reach out to this guy for Natixis. And it just so happened that Natixis advised on Glenfarne's money. $700 million came about 6 months after this email was sent to them. Infragen, though, had only been informed that the entity that received this money is a subsidiary of Glenfarne Group. So Infragen, it was known as Infragen Capital. So it was formed, like I said, within a day of the FBI arrest of CEFC's Patrick Ho. So very telling that they were moving forward with things even as early as 2017, because they obviously had in mind what they were going to do, or at least Jaiki did, because I don't know what Hunter had in mind at that particular point, but the Chinese knew what they wanted to do. I think Rick and her decided they were going to go ahead with this. And of course, Hunter had to be read in on it, I'm sure, later on. So this is the guy that disappeared. We don't really need to know. He used to run was the 226th largest company in the world, and we haven't seen him since March of 2018. So he's either in a re-education camp or he's dead. Just saying.
Probably the
So
latter.
Tony Bobulinski, everybody heard about it. Probably the latter. Dollars to donuts there. So, and everybody's heard of Tony Bobulinski because he was the one who appeared on Tucker Carlson in October 2020.
Everyone that's got their head, everyone that's got their head out of their ass has heard of Tony Bobulinski.
Yep. And I'm gonna just and just for I'm gonna share. This is actually his transcript from his House deposition, and he does mention Rick New by name. He says, I want to say it was like Rick New. It was Hank Greenberg, which I mentioned before. Maurice Greenberg is Hank Greenberg, an individual that worked for Hank Greenberg, I think. And then he spells it out, who was also involved in trying to, basically get into business, get to business from CEFC to partner with him in some capacity. And then James Gilliard, and he's like, anyway, he was just mentioned in there, just so you know. So it kind of lends credence to, the idea that, he was aware of him. But the funny thing is he didn't really ask what his position was supposed to be, what's he bringing to the table. So we know about the 10% for the big guy email. I could probably show that to you, but I'm not going to go through that.
Well, we've all seen that.
So James Gilliard, this guy, this bald-headed dude with the bald-headed guy with the shades, he dealt with a lot of European oligarchs. Actually, this EEIG little entity. So they had put together this huge presentation. There's like a third of it that even the New York Times got a hold of. It's like 70 pages. And in it, he mentioned specifically talking with Davos. So Europe was on the menu, and they actually did they bought part of a bank. They said they got 51% of HSBC in the Middle East. I don't know where they got the money. Guess it doesn't really matter because I'm not a part of it. Anyway, wish it was. Wish I had that kind of money just flowing.
None of us are a part of it.
So, and just to verify what I just discussed here. So they created this huge document, and then they did everything according to Rick's advice. They mentioned him actually later on in another email. And if I go back to Bobulinski's, I share this tab instead. The last page of his depot, I think it's in here. I'm pretty sure. So James Gilliard, he says, later, bro, man, you are right. Let us get this company set up, and then tell Hunter and family the high stakes and get involved. James Woolsey, right there. There's only one James Woolsey that they probably were talking about. There you go.
Yeah, I'm sure it's
then
not.
This guy named David Sandalo.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's obviously a bit of a delay.
That just gives you an idea of who's working with who. Oh.
There's
Okay.
Sounds like there's about a 10-second delay, Jason.
Oh, you got 20. Okay. Hopefully you can hear me now.
Oh, no, I can hear you, but I'm just saying we're having that delay problem. Like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Well, I'll try to slow down or speed up. Okay.
You're doing
so
fine.
Let me go back here to this. Damn it. I'm trying. So we've heard about Robinson Walker. He got $3 million through this affiliated State Energy HK, and he acts like he doesn't know anything about anything in his depot. He just randomly gets $3 million and then, gives it to the Bidens. And he actually hasn't, supposedly, according to him, he says he hasn't had any discussions with the Bidens since late 2017. So suddenly he just falls out of favor with them, and he's keeping his mouth shut probably because he doesn't want to wind up like Mr. Xi
Yeah.
Xiamen, but done by the Americans.
Yep.
He doesn't want to disappear. So, but he did mention in his depot about Louis Freed assisting with Eastern European affairs. Now we're going to get into kind of like the weeds a little bit. So this is these three characters are all working for K&L Gates. Now Hunter knows Charisma Page. She'd sent voicemails to. They worked at the Truman Project or the Truman Center. It's kind of a left wing advocate, center or whatever. Washington's full of these suckers. So anyway, uh, so he knows the K&L Gates partners. K&L Gates did all the lobbying for Glenfarne, the prior owner of Magnolia LNG, Texas LNG. They've been doing lobbying basically since 2015 for them. And Wagner here, this guy here, he's been on that case the entire time. But the gal to the right here, Stacey Ettinger, she used to be Schumer's chief aide before she became a partner at K&L Gates,
Good
and then
God.
now, yes. So she's in thick with this stuff. She represented ByteDance. You could find a Daily Mail article about that. And then she just, this was in 2023. She was still representing Glenfarne. So the first quarter of 2023, she was the chief lobbyist for Glenfarne energy transition, even
And so
superseding Wagner.
Jason,
Yeah.
just before we go any further, Glenfarne, just explain to everybody that Glenfarne is active.
Yes. Very active. Very
Right.
active.
So
So
this is an
yeah.
LNG that is actively
Okay.
seeking investment.
I can.
And the Bidens are tied up in Glenfarne.
Oh
So
yeah.
this is what we
So
mean when
they
we say the
like I said.
grift is still going today.
Mhm. So yeah, the Bidens. Okay, this is what I can tell you. This is truth. This is 100% true. They created a sub entity called Glenfarne Sponsor. Matter of fact, I can show you better than I can. You share this tab instead. So this is a power of attorney that was created by Greenberg and Traurig out of Miami. So these are the witnesses to this power of attorney. There were 6 of them. 3 of them still work for Glenfarne Group, and the other 3 have jumped ship and went to other law firms. So they created this power of attorney, talks about et cetera, sections, SEC filing. Don't worry about what it says. When I say don't worry about it, it's just legalese. But it was formed. No, I mean, I'm not a lawyer. You know what a power of attorney is. So it
Yes.
gives Glenfarne Sponsor. It was a 22.5% ownership of Glenfarne Group when they launched an IPO in 2021. But they launched it very conveniently right after another entity, which we'll get to, is named Marco Polo. Conveniently named Marco Polo. And Rick New is attached to this entity. And it was set up in late 2020. It was 3 days after Christmas. It was set up in Delaware, matter of fact. It was set up about less than 10 miles away from where the Bidens vacation during that time frame, during Christmas holidays. And then later they set up a sub entity in New York that's located in Brooklyn. Well, I say New York, it's located in Brooklyn. And we're going to get into the weeds on that. But this is just to prove that this was set up. And it just so happened, this was set up just about a week after Marco Polo was set up in New York State. So, and as I can say, Brendan Duvall, he's the CEO. So Glenfarne Sponsor was the main shareholder for what was a $250 million IPO that was launched in March of 2021. Believe me, this took me a lot of work to connect all this shit together. It wasn't easy, by the way.
No,
It took
it's
me
right.
3 months.
He's not lying.
Yeah,
He's
to
been
get.
working on this for over a year.
Yes, I've written a lot of stories about it. It took 3 months for me to get, say, the first 70% of this, and then the last 30%'s taken me the rest of the time. When I say just odds and ends. So, okay, so like I said, there's lots of lawyers involved. There's lots of people. these people move along all the paperwork through what's called FERC, which is your Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. They do the approvals for LNG projects, oil projects, say the XL Keystone Pipeline, for example, they got shut down. Those things can be impacted by the Sierra Club and all these activist groups that, find some reason to try to stall these things. So
Yeah.
next big hitter is Tony Blinken. So he met with a subsidiary of Glenfarne, and he's not just the only one, but he met with them in 2022. And as we know, he's the closest he's very close. He's the closest advisor to Joe Biden, and he is. He's known him since the late 2009. He's his road dog. So, and he was supposedly the guy who set up the CIA to say that was Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. So he's key to a lot of this stuff. And this is where the weeds come in. So Devin Archer, he let the cat out of the bag that Greenberg and Traurig, which just so happens to represent Glenfarne Group on their SEC filings, was still representing Rosemont Realty. And then, of course, Hunter, there is a email that shows that was coming from Eric Schwerin, which was the office manager for all of Hunter's dealings, irrespective of whether he was on coke or not. He told him these are the entities that he still owned. And he said that he still had a share, I think like class B or class C shares in Rosemont Realty. And it just so happens Rosemont Realty is owned through a couple different subsidiaries that are connected back to China. So just so you know, they got bought out by Gemini Rosemont, and then they got bought out by a Hong Kong group, and they're owned by Costco, which is the biggest shipping company in the world.
Yep.
So not insubstantial, but it kind of irrelevant, but it just gives you an idea. Some of these things are coming through various entities, but we don't know what the phone calls are. Texas LNG was originally owned by Dan Loeb in 2014. There was a change of control on this particular project, but I can't find any information about what he got for his ownership stake. And it just got, there was a FEC or FERC filing that showed the change of control from Third Point to Glenfarne Group in 2019. So there's something there. I don't know how to get to that answer, but Hunter Biden knew Dan Loeb, did lunch with him, and knows his subsidiary people there. There's a bunch of emails between them. Like I said, this is the Texas LNG. And then Brendan Defoe, he's a former Australian Macquarie Group iBanker for 15 years. And I think the dollars to donuts, he knows Albert Say because, Albert knows Hunter Biden and Devin Archer because they met in Beijing in 2011. So anyway, and it just so happened they were talking about Hunter's other partner from China, Jonathan Lee. So and there was a lot of money exchanged and involved between Jonathan Lee and Hunter Biden and Devin Archer. So there may be something there. So we'll get into that later. This gives you just a high level. As I mentioned before, Sarah and Mike Donlin, National Security Council. And so this is where we get into the date and timeline. So Rick New visited the White House on 8 different occasions, but December 6th was right when he visited, right before Hunter decided to have a art showing in that Lower Manhattan at the Georges Burgess Art Gallery. And Glenfarne, within a couple of days, or a few days of that, voted to dissolve this entire entity. They gave themselves a 2-year window to create a business formation, and they said they voted on it, and that was when when this thing was supposed to be dissolved. It takes about 3 to 4 months to wrap these things up, at least in real time. So that's where the March 23rd comes in. And then let's see. So now they're a private company. And ever since they became a private company, they've had all these, their FERC approval flew in with flying colors for Texas LNG, which is located in Brownsville, Texas, the actual physical componentry of this LNG site. EQT recently did a partnership with them. And then this is where Rick New comes back into play. So he said that he became a securities broker for this company called Marco Polo Securities, which is located in New York City. Marco Polo X LLC, like I told you, was set up in New York in January. It's like 2 days after Biden took office, and it just so happened that this was set up at the according to corporate filings. It was the office location is located at this place called Meeker Street, which was done in July. So they bought. I noted I found some real estate filings, and I found out when they bought this entity, it was like $2,500 a month, and it lines with some other information I gathered on Marco Polo Securities, because they had to publish some filings. I won't go into detail on that because it's kind of complicated, but it does align really well date wise and time wise. And like I said, he stopped his security brokering for them December 14th of 2022. So that kind of goes with the timeline that I'm talking about here. Within a week, he goes and visits, and then a week later, he stops as a security representation for Marco Polo Securities. And this was right around, so obviously he made the trades to dissolve this, or I think he did. That's my take on this. And these are the other little coincidental things. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, so for people that don't realize that Jason's talking about Marco Polo, he's actually not talking about the Marco Polo that we just talked about earlier on. He's talking about the company that Rick New was involved in.
Sorry.
And
wish you would have interrupted me. I didn't know it was on that staff. Okay,
no, that's all right.
Yeah,
that's all
go
right.
ahead.
I was just saying, and Marco Polo is this company that Rick New is involved in. Marco Polo. This is the basis for the website, Marco Polo website, right? With Garrett.
Yes, I think it's a pretty high probability that Garrett obviously caught this much earlier than I did, and I stumbled into it later. And this, yeah.
And so
because he started looking at
Garrett actually said to you that not a lot of people had made the connection. You were one of the
true
only people that had actually made that connection. So I think what we need to do is let other people know that there's the connection. So when you direct people to the Marco Polo website, you can give them a reason as to why it's called Marco Polo, and it throws Rick New into the Biden family soup.
Yes. Oh yeah. And so there's some mapping that I can show you here, and we'll just skip to this part. Isn't really that important. Vlad Bluzer will come up here in a second, and we'll get to that. Okay. So the mapping I'm showing here. So these are some of the entities that are located right in Manhattan, and you'll know some of the names are familiar. Trump Tower. It just so happened Patrick Ho stayed at Trump Tower, and people say, "Oh, that means he's connected to Trump." No, I think a lot of what these particular people have done, especially when I say the Chinese or the CEFCs, they're agents and operatives, and what better way to seek protection than to attach yourself to certain powerful.
Hello. Yeah. What about bugging the joint?
Yes, there you go.
I mean, if you're living in the tower, like all it would take. That's all it. We know that they can hack, right? We know that they hacked into the servers at the Trump Towers, right? So how do we know that this guy didn't fucking orchestrate it while he was living there?
Yeah. Well, Patrick he was doing a lot of shady stuff with African countries when he was representing CEFC's, what they call it, their NGO arm. A lot of this stuff gets done through cutouts and NGOs and stuff like I told you before. Well, like I remember we had the conversation. You remember Kevin Dongwin, they call him
Yep.
Kevin Dong
Yep.
here. He bought this apartment on 55th or 57th Street. It's like for $45 million.
Yeah, I know. I've been looking at rentals around there. Fucking expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive. Yes. I'm sure I bet you, that's more, what's $8 million to Hunter Biden when he's spending 45 million for an apartment in New York?
Yeah, and that's,
You know what I mean?
and like people get a load of the numbers. Think of the numbers that we're talking about here. $45 million. These people are dripping in money, and we are trying to get butter for our children to put on their sandwiches for lunch. Think about it. If this doesn't enrage you, then you have too much money.
Yeah, pretty much. Yes. Oh yeah. There's just, yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing with the Bidens. They're just, yeah, everything they were connected to. Yeah.
And now
So
it's
this is
even
a
worse
high level.
because sorry, I was just gonna say that it's getting worse because they're
No, you're
actually
good.
living off the taxpayer's dollar as well as this grift. So they're being paid by the taxpayer. He's been protected by Secret Service. All the what do they call them? Fringe benefits that you get for being the president's son or even the vice president's son, really.
Mhm.
These people are despicable. That they can walk around, strut around town, smiles on their faces, while the rest of us grovel around at their feet and, you know, beg, basically
Yeah,
beg for
yeah.
some way of survival because of what him and his father's administration are doing to the country and in turn the fucking world. I'm sorry for swearing, but it's true. Everything that happens and is happening is affecting the entire populace of the world. It's not just America. It's not just the Bidens that are corrupt, right? This corruption flows, as Jason said, right through down under. He's got connections down under as well. So if people think that he's just, being hard done by, these Democrats think that the Bidens are just being hard done by, then you guys need to be watching this podcast.
Yeah. So this is another representation of that very thing. So Bob Alinsky, and I just want you to see the numbers here. So he talked about Sinohawks. That was his baby. This is and remember, Liz, he Hunter Biden took his documents and just cut and he literally stamped over his shit.
Yes. Now that is the most like, how illegal is that?
He took his literally for his so the corporate formation documents. He just stripped off his name and put his put the Hudson West. You know, Hunter never did anything. I never seen any email that he sent that he like attached a spreadsheet or did any financial. Now, I mean,
No, it's
he
just
is
words.
solely just yeah, just words and barely that. But there's a little part down here when he talks about Director Zhang, but he said there's a need for equity. Okay, so I'll highlight here. So yeah, the need for equity there is about 300 to 500 million US dollars and can be all done by CEFC or parts of it. Yeah, so they got $500 million laying around if they choose.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jeez.
just throwing. Yeah, they throw money around like where there used to be a joke about what's his face, the guy used to run the Bears, throws nickels around like hubcaps. Here's 10 million. Fuck you, go away.
I mean, look,
Yeah,
this
it's
email was too coherent for me to even
yeah.
believe that Hunter wrote it.
Yeah. Well, no, that was the one that Bob Alinsky wrote,
Oh,
and then
Bobolinsky
wanted
wrote
Hunter Biden
that.
to
Okay.
review it.
That's why it was
Yeah,
coherent.
and then Hunter just screwed him over later, but Bob Alinsky was noting how much money was involved. Yeah,
Yeah.
There you go. So, and this is okay. So this is went into the Rick New and who he knows. So he the Star Foundation put on this little shindig with Greenberg. So that's his boss. He was there with Elaine Chao, which is McConnell's wife, and she was a former Department of Labor and whatever for Trump and Bush. So she's always been close by. Her father is Jean Jamin. He was the former, CCP leader. Her father knew him very well. I guess he was a Shanghai shipping magnate, and they went to high school together. So that's kind of like the line there. And then, like I said, he knows that he's a Facebook friends with Glenn Miles. I found that out, and of course, there's a picture of Glenn Miles with Michael Milken and his bald head. He didn't even have the decency to shave it all off. So
Well,
get that figure here.
he
So
didn't have.
prostate cancer.
He was trying to
Yeah,
grow.
there you
He
go.
was trying to grow the comb over, Jason.
Yeah. So then there's a picture of Glenn Miles, not Rick, Glenn Miles with Zelensky there in Ukraine, and then
there's our dearly departed
Zelensky,
Henry Kissinger.
Mr. plays the piano with his dick, and may he rest in peace in hell. So yeah. So, and then you get the new, like I said, Project White Light. One of the things, one of the things I found interesting was that Hunter Biden, he got a Voxer walkie-talkie account in March of 2017, and it just.
Yep. Is that you frozen or me frozen?
Yeah.
Yep.
A new.
We're having a little bit of. Jason often has a little problem with internet. This time, there's always somebody in there. Now, I'm wondering if I have to send him another invitation. No, he's back. I kept it going for you, Jason. I wasn't sure if you had to get another link or what, so I was just hoping that you'd come back in. All right, beautiful. Take it away.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, you got this connection to this Voxer walkie-talkie, and New is a big fan of using those things. He mentioned this. He's friends with David Petraeus on LinkedIn, and he posted a picture about his love affair with doing broadcast walkie-talkie. He had his 4 friends sitting around back in the 1990s when they were at. I can't pronounce the university, but it's the same university that Xi Jinping attended. So it's in Jai Bao, both of them. So all 3 of them. So the leader of the Communist Party right now, and Rick New and Jai Bao all attended this university.
So how old is Jai Bao? She didn't look that old.
She's like 30, maybe 32, 35. She's pretty young. She was like 28 when this happened. So she graduated, I think, 2010, 2011. I don't know. I forget what year. News. So to get past this for a second. So these are the connections he has, and we know they're big. So this is when I talked about their age.
Yeah.
So he's 53. He's our age. These guys are our age. They're Gen Xers. And like I said, they live in Scarsdale. I hid their addresses to protect them from any nutter that might happen to show up on our stream and take it for the wrong thing. Yeah.
So I'm too far away.
Of course, they work downtown. Yeah, you're cool. I'm cool, but whatever. So just gives you an idea. We're cool. We're cool like that. But that's those 2 are, like I said, big,
so
big time.
Rick New also had a walkie-talkie license, didn't he?
Yes, it's call sign. He has a different call sign, but I have the call sign on it, and it's active. You can file for an FCC license, and it's good for 10 years. So that's
Okay.
what this little picture in the right hand corner, Marco Polo Securities. And just so happens that where this Marco Polo Securities was formed according to, and where the apartment is, it's right next to a place that sells walkie-talkies called Rock Bottom Rentals,
Okay.
right next door. And so, but we'll get down
Is that a
to that
coincidence?
in a second. So, to find so this is what very coincidental. Very coincidental. I don't know.
Mm,
I'm just saying, when you start digging into the little things. So this is what they've been doing in 2024. This is Glen Farm. So you see the Aussie, all these people,
yeah.
Stan Blueser, Vlad
Yeah.
Blueser, and Brendan Duvall. They all were in banking in Australia before they came to America. Before coming to America, they started
Mhm.
off. One of them worked for the Australian Bank, National Bank, Macquarie Group, and I think one of them worked for Barclays, maybe in Australia. I think beforehand,
Okay.
maybe.
Yep. Well,
So,
Bar Barclay
but
Barclays is UK, but I'm sure they have, like, agencies here.
mhm,
So
correct. Yes. Oh, but yeah, the point is like, okay, so Vlad and Stan are obviously brothers. And Vlad is the chief LNG director for Texas and LNG under Brendan Duvall. Stan works for JP Morgan as an executive director. He still does. He has a FINRA account, and he expired. It just so happened he was when he was at JP Morgan. He expired April 13th. Now, why does that matter? Well, it just about a week after Glenn Farn Hunter Biden officially did his final art showing, the last one that we know of, and it happened to wrap up on the 10th business day, according to SEC filings for Glen Farm. That's where this gets into the weeds. You have 10 business days once you finally confirm that you're going to wrap up your business. And there was dates and times and all the SEC filings. It just landed just so. So maybe he was moving these accounts, and I'll show you why in a second. But so this year, you see David Wagner pops up again. It just so happens that the largest U.S. LNG operator did a deal with Glen Farm in January. It was about 2 weeks before Biden put a kibosh on LNG exports. But Wagner here met with Toby Rice. I showed you that video
mhm.
yesterday before it froze up. Well, they
Yep.
were there together, so they probably talked turkey, and voila. But Wagner made representations. They didn't represent anybody at the initial outset of that meeting, but then that isn't necessarily true. He just wasn't representing anybody that day. So he was very precise in his usage of language.
Yep.
And the next group is Gun4 Group. Now, Gun4 is brand new. I don't know any. It's an international company, $150 billion revenues per year. So it's a
Wow.
trading commodity company. Yes. But they just settled with the Biden DOJ March 1st, and it's for things they did with Petro Ecuador. And they were, trying to bribe officials with 18-karat gold watches that
Wow.
I saw.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. Like the diamond, baby.
Hmm.
Like the diamond. Hmm. Yep. And then
A
they were
disappearing
using
diamond.
Panama. Yep. And they were using Panama and the Caymans to kind of run their operations through. Anyway, so they paid a huge fine, and then 3 weeks later, Glen Farm gets in bed with them for an offtake agreement. Seems kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who are the directors of that?
Interesting. Yeah.
Who are the directors of that? Gunver. Who are the directors? Anyone
So
linked with any of the old
uh,
stuff?
that I haven't got all the way into, but this
Okay.
guy represent. Well, it's kind of okay, like anything. Well, I think it's still it's whether it's traded or not. I'm sure it is traded, but like anything else, these things are so nebulous. public-private. This is based out of Switzerland. They're headquartered out of Switzerland. So, who really does own anything anymore?
So Gunvor
That's the hard
Singapore is
part.
based out of Switzerland.
Okay, yeah. Gunvor's headquarters is in Switzerland, but they got their financing. The PR release, the newswire release, was Gunvor Singapore was the one who made the deal with Glenfarne Group. That's where the Singaporean angle gets complicated, as I've mentioned in my Substack post that I showed you the other day. There's a lot of entities that Hunter. There were people that were involved with this initial setup. Noble Group, they fell out of the mix regarding Tony Bobulinski and James Gilliard and stuff like that. I didn't want to make it any more complicated, but they were all doing business out of Singapore downtown. So I mean, this is just the high level of this, believe it or not. This is as short as I can do it. So this proves this little bit here proves that Duvall was dealing with Anthony Blinken. He directly stated that. This is on a LinkedIn post, as you can see. And then I'm dealing with the Marco Polo stuff here. So Marco Polo, and so Glenfarne uses JP Morgan Chase as the bank that did the IPO. So this was the $250 million that they were trying to get for 25 million shares. And they were going to segregate the trust account was going to be located at JP Morgan Chase. And they were going to use Continental Trust, which is located downtown there in Manhattan. So, and when I was talking about the SEC filing, so they filed that on 2/17. Well, according to Marco Polo's thing, this was an event on there. So if you go to Open Corporates and Marco Polo X LLC, it says the event occurred sometime between 2021. This is the initialization of the corporation, and then it says 2/16, and then the very next day, this is when they filed their JP Morgan Chase stuff. So you get where I'm going with this. All the dates are very close together. It shows project management. Like, oh, the next phase is this. We got to do this.
Yeah,
and there's a sequence to everything. Yeah. Well, that's what I get. People say
they empty the bucket into another bucket.
Yes. Well, it's crime is a project. It's project management, especially when you get all the different helpers with the. You got to have the finance dude. You got to have the logistics dude. You got to have the person that can make paperwork disappear. Yep. Yeah. You got to build this is a RICO act. This is a RICO operation. And this is what I was talking about with Marco Polo up here with Delaware. The formation was 3 days after Christmas. Who decides to pick 3 days after Christmas to form an entity called Marco Polo X LLC? I'm just saying.
Someone who someone who's living above the poverty line.
Yes, and it was formed right down the street from, like I said, from where Biden does his vacation home, and it was in Delaware.
That's right.
And it's not and it's not the normal place in Delaware where they form all the corporate, because Delaware is where a lot of just about everything is formed.
It's like 90% of the LLCs are from Delaware, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very high percentage. And then you notice though, when this was formed, it was formed as a foreign limited liability company. So why was it formed as a foreign limited liability company? Get into that. Mm-hmm. And it just so happens. And I found this so the entity that controls this, Marco Polo Securities, does have a base of operation in the Caymans. So it does have an address down there. So, I mean, if you're going to offshore, why not offshore to the Caymans? So,
well, that's right.
And then this is
place
where
to visit too when you're going to do a withdrawal.
Yeah. So Stan Bluser, I told you he worked for JP Morgan. He's an executive director. So he handles JP Morgan Securities, and he handled it, like I said, till April 13th. So that's one data point. Marco Polo X was formed at 667 Meeker Street, apartment 3F. and Rick New started doing his securities for Marco Polo Securities, and this was September 30th. This is about 40 days after this Meeker Street apartment was bought. And now I can't confirm, there's no absolute, obviously I don't know whether he moved any securities. I did notice that when they fought Marco Polo Securities Incorporated, there was a 8-page filing I found, and it found that they had a significant level of cash that came in 2022. It's like $500,000. That's probably the fee for what he was doing. So, I mean, it jumped significantly from their other, and it's run by, there's some other names attached to this. So when you get into FINRA filings, they don't tell you a lot, but they do give you some dates to work with. And just so you know why I'm so focused on JP Morgan, hopefully this will show up. Yeah.
It's
so
not just because
this is from Marco Polo. So this is actually a SARS report, and you notice the first name, JP Morgan Chase, JP Morgan Securities LLC. They filed the suspicious activity. This is against Hunter Biden, Devin Archer, all the names we kind of know.
Now, is this,
and you see 93 wires.
Is this what Devin Archer went to jail for?
No, he went to jail for hustling casino crap.
Okay,
I hate to
so
say.
they found a
he was
crime.
hustling Indian.
So they found a crime that Archer was involved in. They found a crime that Devin Archer was involved in without Hunter, so they could get rid of him.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good. It seems to me. Well, there were several people that Hunter seems to be that were around Hunter.
Or did Hunter like leave any anonymous tips for the DOJ?
I think it's this. I think our DOJ / FBI with Trump. Okay, when Trump was in, the FBI and the DOJ, they knew all this was going on. But what better time to kind of reel in the Bidens and control them and get them pissed off, and later use that as a mechanism to get them to jump in, to the White House.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. What I mean is it's leverage. So we're gonna little
leverage.
pushes. Yeah, Patrick Ho. Yeah, well, Patrick Ho was arrested. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and it's almost two birds with one stone, because it was sort of the case for impeachment, because they say that that Trump was trying to look into the Bidens to, but at this stage, Joe wasn't even running. So, it's like, so go ahead, Patrick Ho, you were saying.
I was just saying, okay, so he got nabbed by the FBI. Now they already knew he was dirty. And I mean, the FBI, he had been, being followed for a couple of years, and it just conveniently timed that they did it, and they wanted to interrupt. Who knows who had the big bug up their ass, but it was very conveniently timed, because it was within two. Okay, so Hunter got the money in August. In November is when Patrick Ho finally gets snapped. So it's kind of, you know what I mean? There's a short window, and they decided to, pull the trap on Hunter's gig with the CEFC. But we don't even know if the Chinese didn't do it. In other words, they did the anonymous tip line. We don't know who is pulling all the strings behind certain aspects of this. I don't think it was
What
Trump.
about Pompeo?
He was still CIA, I think, until 2018. Yeah, he could have done it.
It's like shit's coming out about Pompeo now that you would only read about in the best sci-fi thrillers, right? But
yeah,
but like, I wonder if there's. I don't know how much further you need to look, but like, if you're saying all this happened, it did not. You're not saying it. It did happen under Trump's presidency when Patrick Ho was arrested and all of this stuff obviously started presenting itself.
Well,
this is nowhere near what we found out after the laptop came out. So it sort of looked like it was a prize win for Trump that they got Patrick Ho, but it set off a whole other set of events that got Joe into the White House, is what you're saying.
What interrupting his grift? Okay, so we know he gets grifts through book deals. He did a book deal, I think, in 2018, but he interrupted Hunter's grift, which interrupts Joe's grift, and that would cause him to want to admit they wanted somebody they can control. So if you're the FBI and okay, Hillary wasn't, they said, Hillary's a bitch to control. We know that. But she may also, they may, after she just lost and everything, like, they were like, okay, that isn't going to fly. But Joe, they already knew he was declining mentally, and they know how dirty he is. What better? I mean, if you really they want to get Trump out of there, and they certainly want to get somebody they can control in there all the time without do whatever the hell they want to do. What better way than to first squeeze them a little bit on the money? And Hunter, he went off on the rails. I mean, he was spending money in 2018. I mean, he spent $25,000 in one day on one stripper. So, you figure it out.
Yeah.
He was throwing money around. He blew through every bit. I mean, the final $1 million he got in March of 2018, he had that blown, halfway through 2018, and by late 2018, early 2019, his emails to his ex-partners like Schwerin and Neil Callahan and all these others, he was being a total. He was attacking his secretarial assistants, Katie Dodge and this other gal that worked for him, just going after him. I think her name's Arlene. I forget her last name. I mean, his tonality. I mean, he was always an asshole, but he was like just desperately attacking anybody, lashing out and everything. And then of course then the laptop effery and stuff like that. So I think the FBI knew they said they triggered him, obviously, by arresting his partner. But the Chinese went ahead. I mean, they went. That's the thing with this Glenn Farn sponsor. I don't know if it isn't that sponsor could be two people could know. I mean, it could be Hunter Biden and CEFC, maybe a split. I never know. You can't find out who owns it. Now the Greenberg and Trarig knows it, but
somebody's got to know.
Oh yeah, well, obviously the people that are no. They only. I mean, the of course lawyers never tell. Of course, they're not going to kiss and tell, so to speak. So yeah, they would know, and of course the K&L Gates would know because they know who they're representing. So and yeah, that's the reason why these connections matter, because when you get into all the connections, just going back to that for a second. So. When you go all the way back up here, we didn't really focus on this, but you look at all the different locations and all these people he's connected to. I mean, I even mentioned, he's connected to Steptoe and Johnson. I mean, this in 2014, it just so happened Bill Burns, who was then the ambassador to Russia, was meeting with Jeffrey Epstein there. That's interesting. I mean, that's interesting in and of itself. What's the story there?
Yeah,
why were they
just going to say
why
that?
was he? Yeah, yeah, and of course now he's the Biden CIA director. And Hunter. I mean, Hunter knew the entire intel community. This isn't just a letter, the laptop, about the laptop. There was a Republicans for Biden or whatever. There was like a letter with 130 names, and if you looked at the name.
No, lost your mic, Jason. Lost your mic. Okay, you're back. You're back. You're back. No, you're up. I can hear you now.
Good. Okay, I'm good. You can hear me, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the whole national security state hates, hated Trump with a passion. So they needed somebody they can control. And Biden called in. It seemed like every favor was done. It was like he probably made every deal he could to get in there because he's like, okay, you guys got to get me across the finish line because I suck. No one's going to vote
Because
for
I
me.
suck.
They're like, sure, we'll make it. Yeah. Well, I'm
That's
sure he knew
hilarious.
from his prior experiences.
Oh my
Yeah,
God, that's so
and
funny.
they're like, sure, we can make it. Pull me across the finish line, dudes. You
Imagine
want me
that
to stay?
conversation.
You want me?
Imagine the conversation between Obama and fucking Joe. It's like, Joe,
Yeah.
look, you and I both agree. You suck, but we're going to get you there anyway.
Well, he did say that. He said, you remember that the phrase or the quote? He
Yeah.
says, "Never
Don't
underestimate Joe Biden's
underestimate.
ability to fuck things up. Don't underestimate him." And the national
Never.
security state knew that
Oh, fucking, and do you know
too.
what?
They said,
Don't
he's
underestimate him. Don't underestimate him indeed, because he's the fucking president and he's fucking taking money out of your pockets. And
yeah,
he's getting the
absolutely
grift as well. 10% for the big guy.
unbelievable. Well, yeah, and he can do that. If you look into, okay, so like the LNG, when I mentioned, so these projects are going, this Texas one's going along, and Magnolia is possibly going to kick over too. So how are these projects going forward when Biden just released an executive order in January that said that they were going to put a pause on LNG export until they worked out the environmental details? He was trying to pander to,
Well, I'll
the
tell you
environmental.
exactly what that means. You know what that means? That means that we're going to work out the environmental details, means we're going to find all the
Yeah.
places where I have got money making deals, and we're going to judge them to be environmentally friendly to drill on.
Correct. Yeah. Well, he's doing something. I guarantee the bigger, to me, it's like, okay, well, the pause though helps because, okay, the LNG prices are really low now, low for what they need. Or if you were going to do a business case for like
Uh-huh.
getting into the market right now, the LNG price is too low to cover, even with markups and stuff like that. They want that price to come up, but they have to restrict. So the U.S. right now, the market is evidently very flooded. I'm not an LNG expert, and it's actually kind of it takes a lot of skill to know a lot about stuff like this. But what I gather I know who the biggest ones are. Qatar, just so happens Qatar and Australia and the U.S. are the three biggest suppliers in the world of LNG
Yes, we
to,
are.
all the different markets.
Yep.
So yes, you are. And
Oh, mate,
Japan is like
I
one of the
think they're
biggest
actually building.
destinations. China's
I think we are actually building an underwater
yeah.
pipe from here to fucking China. I tell you, I heard a rumor about it a long time ago that they were going to start work on, and like, just like the bloody one that you guys had that's been shut down. But obviously, if it is something that's real, who's financing that? Because that's a multi-billion-dollar job. I think it has something to do with the Belt and Road Initiative.
Oh, I wouldn't. Yeah. Yeah. Everything's the Belt and Road is like the quintessential. Hold on a second. Can you hear me still? Yeah,
Mhm.
it's the biggest one. It, it's exactly what well. So, oh, by the way, there was a report that came out. I don't know if it's true. When I say I don't know, it's true. Okay, so China evidently in 2022 spent over $700 billion on their military, at least according to some people's analysis. So triple the amount that they were stated that they were going to spend. So almost pure spending to the United States. So
I saw
between
that
those two
post.
superpowers is like yeah, $1.5 trillion between the United States and China, and one's 800 and one's 700. So 100 billion. What's $100 billion between the two only China is supposedly replacing, obviously the old it's the whole Cold War mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Get rid of all the old bombs in
well,
case they blow up while they're still here.
yeah. And just so you know, this is kind of like a sidebar, but we'll go here real quick because this is the Singaporean connections I was talking about.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I remember this
and
map.
this is where it gets this is a yeah. So this Trust Corp alliance, if I mean, I can pull up Biden's, what do you call it, the emails. Hamoud Hashimi. So that was connected to Tony Bobolinsky and James Gilliard. And Nigel Robinson was mentioned in an email by James Gilliard. Noble Group. Noble Group, actually, they had to split apart, but they were involved in accounting chicanery, kind of like we go back to Enron, same kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
And Noble Group was at one time like a Fortune 500 company, and now they're not. So, riddle me that.
So they lost their fortune.
A lot of shady operators, and they were trying to do a big deal with them. Yes. So Natixis is located there, and I don't mention this very often, but this is another Swiss operation, Partners Group, but they also have operations in Singapore. This is they're 50-50 investors with Glenfarne on Infragen,
Mm-hmm.
which is which I have on here, right here. Yeah. So I put it on the map here with Sumitomo. So they got their financing from Natixis and Sumitomo Mitsu is a Japanese outfit.
Yep.
One thing I found out, there's an old story that I stumbled across, and evidently, so the Japanese were involved in some big scandals in the mid 1970s with Lockheed Martin and
Mm-hmm.
George Bush, George Herbert.
Yeah.
They're running arms and military operations. Anyway,
Okay. Trust
point
good
is
old
they were
George.
running a lot of
George.
their
Never
black
left us
ops
down.
through. Yeah. So Singapore has always been a hot spot for running black ops and all this other kind of stuff. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that all these entities are within a short little walk downtown. Just. But last but not least, we have this little one. OE. This is where the MV Dali is supposed to be headquartered. Let me see if I got it up here. So was it Dali, Grace Ocean? So that's where there's a part of me that I don't know. So when the Dali hit the Baltimore Bridge, it just so happened that there used to be an old LNG project that's located right next door to the Baltimore Bridge. It's called Sparrows Point, and
Mm-hmm.
at one time in 2010, Biden's were kicking or Hunter was kicking the tires on that particular operation. So that's where that's a conspiracy too. Are they trying to reinvigorate a old project that he was getting involved in? Because they don't care where their money comes from. This is like a 9-figure grift that Biden's working on, because Hunter has no other skills, so he's got to get $100 million somewhere, and he's paying $1 million a month for legal representation. To
Yeah, we
Abby
were
Lowell
talking
and all
about
his,
this yesterday, like the
mm-hmm.
pot buddy of his that's been paying all of his debts hasn't got that much money.
No. There's no
So
way. At least not
where is
that
he
much.
getting it? Where is he getting it? He's not
Yeah.
getting it from Dad, because Dad can't be that
Yeah.
stupid. What about Uncle Jim? Where's Uncle Jim? What's he been
Not
dabbling
yet.
in? What have they been doing? I just,
Yeah, no, that ain't no lie.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
what's
just
Uncle Jim
really,
doing?
I don't know how
Yeah,
smart,
okay.
I don't know how smart like the rest of them are, like Jim and the sister and all of that. But if you just go on Hunter and his father, How the fuck did they pull this shit off?
That's where the Rick News of the world come in.
I need a Rick New in
I'm
my
serious.
life.
Yeah. I mean, no, I mean, that's why I think he quarterbacks all this stuff. That's why he's very important. I mean, I think he's quarterbacked and like I say, he lives upstate in Scarsdale, right next to Brendan Duvall. I mean, they're off the radar up there where they live. They can easily have conversations about whatever, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And they come rolling into town. And like I said, Brendan Duvall's main right hand man for LNG. His brother works at J.P. Morgan Chase, and he has his account at J.P. Morgan Chase. They're doing all the minutia in the background to keep it hidden from full view. And of course, it's in the Southern District of New York. That even reminds me, and I I gotta find it, but I can find it. There was a correspondence that was written actually by one of the lawyers that was attached to the SEC filings, because Glenn Farn, when they wrote their initial prospectus, they said that the legal so if there was any problems or concerns with this, prospectus and stock or whatever, that the jurisdiction for legal filings would be the Southern District of New York. What do we know is going on in the Southern District of New York? All the corruption. And even the SEC, it was a SEC lawyer that responded back and said, "Well, this doesn't look quite right. You can't determine where you're going to be held liable or what laws will apply based." Or it was like it was determining what jurisdiction you could uh, sue in and hold the case in. It was really weird. I'd have to go read it again, but point being is they've compartmentalized this so well in New York City that he can get away with a lot of shit, even though their Glenn Farn has like an operation in Houston, in whatever, they got like and particularly down in South America and stuff, which I didn't even delve into. So Glenn Farn does a lot of distressed assets. They bought all these solar panel places and wind farms and shit like that all around South America. I wouldn't even doubt if they weren't involved in lithium mines, for fuck's sake. That kind of deal. So that's
Yeah,
where,
well, I
yeah,
guess it'd give him another precious resource too, the children that mine the lithium.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, the green, well, the green grift is really big with them because actually in their SEC they were talking about the Inflation Reduction Act. They mentioned all kinds of stupid shit, So anyway, yeah, the grift is on, and that's what's really weird. I mean, I don't even know if these are the only two. These might not be the only two projects that Hunter's attached to. These are just the only two that were very prominent in his emails that Jike sent to him. Who the fuck knows? He might have pieces of a couple other ones that are out there. There's like a list of, I mean, there's like 20 or 30 LNG projects around the United States because it's it's the thing or whatever. And if you can get finance, and if you can get publicly yeah. Anyway, the banks are just looking for anything they can get their clinches, and we're trying to control Europe through LNG. That's the reason why That's why we know, or we were pretty much told that the Nord Stream 2 was blown up, or the Nord Stream pipeline was blown up by the United States. Convenient that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the
Even
Middle,
Russia said so.
yeah, and then, well, yeah, as an act of war actually, and a great, I mean, surprising, could be a lot worse, but
I know.
yeah.
Could
So,
you imagine? Could you imagine if somebody lost their head over in Russia?
yeah. For
We'd
that,
be in
yeah, I can
we'd
see
be in
lots
big
of
shit.
things.
We'd be in a lot of trouble if that happened, like back then. A lot more trouble than we are now.
Oh, Oh yeah.
You know, can we say Putin showed restraint?
Oh, I think that's possible. I mean, you have to think of it like you have to start thinking of it that way. Now it's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know. Didn't see any questions, but that doesn't mean that anyone have any questions out there, and maybe we can
I
see if we
have
can.
put it out there on X as well, I
Yeah,
think too, but
yeah.
I got no responses. Apparently, there's 14 people watching us on
Hmm.
Rumble, but I'm not sure
Yeah.
what happened on the local stream. It only seems to have streamed for a certain amount of time, but I'll figure that out
Hmm.
later.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I see we got 11 or so views, so that's okay. You know, yeah, I knew there's a lot of details, and and it's not sexy as far as the money is concerned. I mean, like I
mm,
said, if you do the math on the 22%, and I think the final wrap up of the thing was like 200 for this particular part of the business, it would have been around $60 million. Would have been attached to that sponsor, Glen Farm Sponsor LLC.
mhm.
And uh, the thing is with all the banking, so Glen Farm uses when I say exotic bank, they definitely use French banking, and they definitely use Japanese banks. So offshore, but they held all their accounts with JP Morgan. Why aren't they letting JP Morgan finance their stuff? And they used MT Bank. That's another, I think,
Yeah, I've
Japanese
heard of them
bank.
too. I think
Yeah.
I've heard of them.
So there's a lot. I mean, this is where this is. This is a securities fraud? Well, this is just like it's everything. It's money. It could be money laundering. It could be
And
RICO.
it's
It could be
still
FARA.
happening today. It's happening
Yes.
right now.
Hmm.
Every time Hunter goes to the ATM and cha-chings it,
Yes.
it's you and
And
China
and
paying, and China wants its money
yeah.
back eventually.
And well, yeah. Well, that's the thing too. When he did the initial deal, 5 million went into the Hudson West, and they got credit cards for Sarah and Jim, and got $1 million later. We got, we'll say there's like 9 million, $9 to $10 million because of the other 3 million that went to Rob War. Okay, you give someone $9 million, you expect something. You expect results for money.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like you don't pay a cleaner to come and not clean your house. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
And some people say, well, that's not a lot. What could they possibly expect? Well, I don't know. They expected to get the Chinese want their, they want their LNG to be secure. I mean, they're buying up land, they're buying up properties.
Well,
Oh,
I'm
by the
pretty
way, a lot
sure.
of
I'm not sure if you looked into Twiggy Forest over here. It's geez, what's it called? Forest. I can't think of the bloody company name at the moment, but he's like a big mining dude over here. And he's just been recently over in China, so he's doing deals, and I'm pretty sure it's got something to do with LNG. So he
Mhm.
was he was making statements about a month or so ago saying, "Remember what Joe said? China about China. Everybody says China's going to cut our lunch. They're not bad folks. Remember that?
Yeah, they're
That's
not bad.
exactly what Twiggy Forrest is saying now. They're not bad folks. And usually that tells me that you're doing a deal with them. Bloody what's his face? The bloody boxer, Cena, John Cena. He did the big fucking apology, remember? The
Oh yeah,
big
groveling session. Yeah.
yeah. There's so many
It's like,
people that have kowtowed to these people. The only what's the Occam's razor? The most
so,
obvious, the most simplest answer is often the truth.
yeah,
Well, what's the most simplest answer?
yeah.
They're all fucking taking money from these bastards.
Well, and this is I learned, but it reinforced. There's this acronym, and I've been using it lately, and I used it in a broadcast I did one time. It's called RICE. So
Yes.
rewards, so you can buy someone off. Ideology, you're kind of aligned with them.
Hmm.
Coercion, which we know the Chinese are very good and adept at, and then
Yeah.
ego, which we know Joe Biden and Hunter got huge egos. So, you can leverage them on all four of those accounts. I mean, ideology, they're just nutters and
And this is a CIA tactic, isn't it, Rice?
yes, yes.
Yes.
So if you look at it from that standpoint, I mean, it can be any one or all four of those in the various conditions. I mean, think about the Chinese. I mean, they've been since early 2010s. I mean, they've had Joe under their thumb. So, I mean, shit, who
Mm.
knows how much compromat and everything else in between, and how much money they.
And
I mean,
but it's
you know,
not just China with Joe.
yeah,
It's Romania, it's
Ukraine,
Russia, it's Ukraine, it's
Iran,
come
Iran.
on.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Everywhere he ever everywhere Air Force Two touched down, and now Air Force One, guaranteed there's a problem right there.
100%. It's like I just don't understand why. I swear to God, did you hear how they're tearing up this Project 2025 and they're calling it Donald Trump's totalitarian handbook,
Yeah.
right? So,
Um, uh,
like, to
yeah.
be honest with you, I freaking hope it is. Like, they want him so badly to be a dictator. I hope he dictates to them right up the wazoo because I'm so sick and tired of their that look down their noses at normal people and lie to your faces. This is just politicians in general, right? How many good and decent politicians can you count? Do you need both your hands and your feet? Because certainly not in Australia. Do you know what I mean? I was just
Yeah.
saying to my mum, we've got a politician here. She's been here. I've been here 20 years. She's been the rep since I've been here. So
Like Pelosi.
term limits, all of that sort of shit.
Yeah.
If they don't start implementing that, then what's it all
Yeah.
for? This is what we were talking about the other day, Jason. I hope he's just not going to go in there and it's going to be just a status symbol. Like, I want him to tear them apart. And I don't know about how you think most Americans feel, but from what I can gather, they feel the same way.
I think there's a broad opinion there. So if you're
Not as
not
in
looking,
tear them apart, like in blood and guts way. I'm talking about
no, no,
tear them
no, no, no,
apart,
no,
disassemble
yeah,
these.
no. I think there has been there's a growing concern, and people are the ones that are not, you know, you know, bullied or bamboozled by our media, which there's less and less every day, or they're not in the chattering class, the elitist positions, and all that shit. So I'd say people with their head screwed on halfway right or have to deal with the inflation and shit like that. Yeah, they know that this is messed up and that Biden, he's making us look bad all over the globe. They know that, that. Now, okay, so goes into two options. I think the typical MAGA or conservative, yeah, they want Trump back because they know what 2019 and 2018 looked like, felt like, and all that stuff compared to what we've
Mhm.
had the last. And they're giving him a mulligan on 2020 because he was hijacked. I mean, in many respects. Now, granted, dude does not know how to get away from our favorite thing called starts with the V, and doesn't know how to avoid that conversation. And I don't know if it's not just because whatever. But yeah, I think
I don't even know.
everybody's
I don't even know if we're on YouTube. We might have already been dumped from YouTube if we were talking about the Bidens. So
yeah, the whole problem. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that, yeah, they know. There's like, look, he has been horrible in foreign policy. We're not going anywhere economically. I mean, even mainstream economists or big names in what do you call it, the financial world are going, he sucks. The Treasury sucks. The Fed sucks. Biden doesn't know how to message. He poops his pants. You know, they know they just know he's a empty suit. So they know all that stuff. The thing is like, and then of course, every time Trump is persecuted, the thing with Trump is his advisors. If he doesn't pick any better advisors, it's not going anywhere. That's just the way I look at it. If he picks people that are truly committed to making this country better, and they have the stones to stand up to the deep state. So this is a story that, you know, this is from the past, and we're going to have to do it 10 times as much. Is Carter, when he got into office, he got rid of 30% of the CIA.
Yeah.
Just decapitated it.
Yeah.
We're going to have
Carter
to decapitate
fucked up everything.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that too. He did that. But that wasn't the worst decision. That was probably one of the better better decisions.
No,
he ever made.
yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. Because
but everything else was bonkers.
a lot of Democrats didn't like the intelligence agencies because usually they were looking inward at them. That's why they wanted they wanted them gone. Kennedy wanted them gone. You know, the famous quote, "Going to take the CIA and tear it into a million parts and spread them to the wind." So it's like a long-standing love-hate relationship with the intelligence agencies on the Democratic side. We've always believed that they were a conservative group because they made themselves out to be a conservative group, right? But in actual fact, they were just mob bosses leveraging the other side to be able to get away with whatever they want and do whatever they want, as long as certain people they protected, which they did, or Hoover did. Oh no, that's FBI.
Well, you know what they did? Well, yeah, but the potato.
Same thing. Yeah, exactly. And these days especially.
Yeah, but to that point, I mean, you just think of what you know as much about this as I do. But the Mike Johnson, they scared the, well, we think they scared him, but I don't think it's just scared. But let's just say that they said, "Ooh, we're facing all these crazy threats. We need more money. We need a new quarters. We need to fund Ukraine."
MAGA's been saying no fucking FBI building for at least 2 years. We've been saying it, screaming it. No, fuck it. Since they started doing all of this shit with Trump, everybody was saying, fucking give him a new building. What, you're going to pat him on the back for ruining a fucking president and his whole family?
Yeah, and he should have. I tell you, like I said, he definitely. Well, that's a different thing. That's a thing too with
because he signed off on it, didn't he? He signed off on it during his tenure.
And we don't know if that would think of it that if you really want to be devil's advocate and play it, is he trying to bribe them to leave him the fuck alone? Well, that's not going to work. I don't know why anybody would. You can't deal with these people.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a possibility, Jason, because he could have thought, well, if I give them what they want and I give them a nice new building and, it'll be Trump Tower Mark II. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
But
give them enough money, they'll go away. They'll leave you alone. Well, that's not what these people want. They want you out of the way.
But the problem is, the problem was it wasn't so much the FBI wanted him out of the way as much as the Democrats wanted him out of the way, and they called in their chips with the FBI.
Yeah.
They called in their chips with everybody and said, this guy's got to go, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Hack, whatever.
And we already know when everybody talks about the blob or the administrative state or the deep state or whatever terminology you want to use, I call them the blob because that permanent bureaucracy, the behemoth living organization called the bureaucracy. Anyway, and we know those are all connected back to prior presidents. And we know, Obama's a scumbag, and Biden hired all his scumbags back, and Bush, who's a scumbag, and and lo and behold, Biden, the one lady that got into the Biden administration, who was running Ukraine, is Victoria Nuland. Worked directly for the Bush administration. Was actually the chief advisor to Dick Cheney, and we know what Cheney's like, and we know what Liz Cheney's like, and it just never ends with these
This
people.
is just a recycled deck of cards. They just keep putting people in different. Yep.
Exactly.
Like
You're
one
right.
day he's king, next time you'll be king.
Yeah.
You're always going to be the Joker, Joe
Yeah.
Biden.
You think about that: DC, Wall Street, NGO think tank, university. There's certain places, and they just rotate around like they're playing. A long time ago, I came. This is back. I had to say that when I was a Democrat. Don't hold that against me. In the 2000s, but I wasn't. Well, I wasn't like a hardcore. Whatever. It's a failing. You're younger and stupid, but they weren't quite as nutty as they were. But I always I attribute it to a basketball analogy. So at the end of basketball games with North Carolina, they used to run a thing called the four corners, and they would just put people in, and they would just play keep away with the basketball and run out the clock. So that's what the deep state does to us. It's like, we just try to run out the clock, and we
in the middle.
Yeah. Oh, it's the think tanks. Go after them, and then the think tanks go, no, go after Congress, and then the Congress goes, no, go after the intel community.
Follow the ball,
and then all of them go to Wall Street, follow the money, but can't touch Wall Street because you know what, the whole economy will crash, and they all got the same excuses. Like, if you mess with us, everything will fall to pieces. The whole world will crash if you the intelligence community.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing about that. Those things have happened, and the world hasn't ended. We're still here.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah, I know. But what I'm trying to say is an economic fallout has happened. We've survived it. We've built back better, right? So
I don't know if I want to use that term, but yeah, I get you.
Yeah, I know. I did it on. That's why I had it in quotation marks. But it's like the only thing really that we need to fear is what you're talking about, like the Big Bang, the Civil War, everything going off, everyone going nuts and fucking pushing red buttons all over the joint. Because there's no surviving. There's they're surviving it, but what sort of survival is it?
Well, we know what their big plan is they want us
Depopulation.
all depop, total control through money, through traceable, 100% tracing money, or any transaction you ever make, any transaction you make, anywhere you go. They want us in a oversized, a glorified prison that just happens to be like, 10 square, at best, 10 square miles. So oversized prison camp. I hate to bring it up, but kind of like supposedly like the way Palestine was set up. I'm just saying, but that's what the story or part of it is. But it doesn't, when you have evil leadership, which is a whole other different conversation too. Look at the leadership around the world. The whole point of them, all of them, is to just dominate their people and not care one iota what they say or democracy. There is no even if the majority of us say, okay, we hate your policy, they're like, well, I'll figure out a way to sell it to somebody, and who gives a shit if the rest of you don't like it. And by the way, that's where we're at. And just so we know, you can find pictures of Joe Biden, being all chummy with Klaus Schwab back not so many years ago. And Klaus Schwab and the whole corporatism and the communism together, fascism, communism.
But like, who's sitting around in America saying, dag nab that bloody Constitution?
Yeah.
Why did we form a stupid republic? Do you know what I mean?
The beauty of it was supposedly
why are they doing that? And don't they realize what they're doing? Because if the Republican system is worked honestly, it's the best fucking system in the world.
It's the best one we got. Well, let's just
But
say
I mean,
amongst
what
all
I'm
the
saying
others.
is, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
If it's
well,
worked honestly, that's the word. It's got to be worked honestly and to
well,
the founders' perceptions of what life was going to be.
so let's steel man this. Okay. If we rolled back a lot of this stupid stuff, which has gone on ever since the founding, you know, the idea is the way it's designed is one way. The way it's been operating for the last since, especially since World War II, or even actually since the founding of the Fed, because it's always been about congealing power for these people at the top. We know,
Yeah.
and they look at us as this ordinary, sheep to be shared over and over again, and pit us against each other and all that kind
Like
of
sounds a lot like
yeah.
sounds a lot like child smuggling.
Yeah, and they don't see us in anything more than just, pawns to move around, and if we die, who gives a shit?
Someone's
That
always making another one.
Yes. And the less of us, the better, less mouths to feed, all that jazz. And we want total control. Well, that, and they've just gotten to the point where they think there's enough technology that they think they can implement it. And eventually they're building the cages around all of us, unbeknownst to most of us, transactional tracing. Uh, they know that, like, everything we're saying here can and will be used against us in some court of inter law, depending upon if they want. I mean, you know what I mean. They can.
Mhm.
They. It's not just here, but I'm just saying they've divorced themselves from the precepts that were laid down in the American Constitution, the Magna Carta, and all the different aspects of Western civilization that actually worked well. And there's always been this tension because everybody wants better than what they got, obviously, um, at the lower levels. And they know that. The people at the very top know that. And that there was a social contract that, was always on a pivot, as far as keeping that in place. But they always knew they could exploit it to, pit sides against each other. So women versus men, black versus white, religions, everything. They've always known that they to keep us under control is to get us at each other's throats so they can steal more and they can control more, because if we don't ever unite to anything, that's the reason why the United States, when, think about World War II, probably the most united. I mean, we were isolationist, and I'm actually of the
Mhm.
mindset of more of an isolationist policy, as as I've said before. Certainly,
Well, a
I
lot of
don't want to
people
be.
are.
Yeah,
A lot of
nobody
people are
wants to be
becoming that way because of the way things are.
Yeah.
This is like that Tucker Max that was on Tucker the other day.
Hmm. Why would you want to be scattered all over? Why would I want to have 800 military bases around the world for the United States? Why do I even want 100 military bases? Why is it that we don't even protect our own border? We don't care about the people that are here. And then you have asinine people. And I was on before we came on broadcast. I see that stupid this Michelle, whatever she's knocking Megan, this and that. And the people she
Mhm.
reposted was some writer for the Chicago Tribune, and he talks about how terrible Trump is and this and that. Talks about how,
From
but
Chicago.
but but beyond, yeah, I was talking about the Stormy Daniels and stuff like this, cheating and stuff. But the key part of the
Mm.
entire tweet, though, was at the very end. He says, and he encourages white people to feel superior and that they own this country and that the brown people are only here to rent it. And it's like, no.
Wow.
But that's the mentality that they want to sow, and he's
Yeah.
a divisive. This guy's a agent, writer. He's amongst the elite, the chattering classes, and they want to make it about skin color and everything else. No, no, no. I
Mhm.
didn't grow up in that America where okay. I can remember very vividly, and I'm sure you can because of our ages. There was a time in the 70s and prior to that. We know about the civil rights era, and we know how actually that turned out to be a bad deal because actually
Mm.
you go back and look at numerical analysis and stuff like this, is what Thomas Sowell teaches you. And if you read about it, you understand that the families were more together prior to 1960, 1965, before the civil rights. I mean, was it perfect?
Yeah, yeah.
No.
But
But what got
was?
but
There were
what
just
got
as many white marriages that were as bad as the black ones, like as
yeah.
much trouble as the black ones. That's the thing. They just tried to define them, and in the
But
end, like,
but what they did is they introduced the argument. Okay, so what was the whole? What did the Guns and Butter, the Lyndon Baines Johnson? He turned on more of the social welfare system. The idea, this is where the Cloward Piven strategy was developed in the mid 60s. They said if you could overwhelm the system, if we could bring in, so actually people don't realize, or maybe some do, mid 60s was the first, I think, immigration laws that got kind of tinkered with and manipulated. Then in 86, we tinkered with it. But between like the mid 60s and the mid 80s, there was, a whole host of changes in our society that went from, I mean, it's really, when people look back, will say that was a very formative, because that's where all the Marxism got into schools. There's Department of Education was developed then. We had the whole push for, equal rights, equal rights, equal rights. Okay. It's application of equal rights to people that has always been, it's never going to be perfect, because you have people are imperfect that are in charge. What has always been, and the structure of it has always been, no, we want just equity. We just want to get it without work. And it introduced a greater welfare system. And of course, the 70s were tumultuous because of inflation, and we went off the gold standard. That's probably one of the biggest things ever. Once we went off the gold standard, and granted, we were already on the Fed system already, but once the gold standard was decoupled, then fiat that, as the reserve currency, we have impacted Australia and all the other places.
yep,
You're a kind, personally that. And so
yeah.
that whole time frame
Personally,
yeah.
put it this way: if you're an Australian that wants to travel to the US or to Europe or anything like that, you need to save double the amount of spending money you intend to spend, because once you get over there, half of it's gone.
Yeah, I know.
It's
Yeah,
only
because
it's only what you don't spend that you get back
yeah.
when you come home.
And so that had a huge impact, and there was this, we had a Cold War mentality, but the Marxists, they always say postmodernism, and all the social unrest of the 60s just spilled over into the entire institutions.
Mhm.
And Yuri Bezmenov talked about this in the 80s. He was about a decade, he was a generation too early, but he wasn't wrong, because by 2008, 20 years later, basically
Was
no
he a
generation.
generation too early, or were we just too stupid to listen?
Well, that too. Yeah. That kind of, well, yeah, that's it. If we would have listened at that particular moment and had reversed the course and many things that we had done, or things that had already been in,
Mhm.
and if we had decouple, or if the size of government would have shrunk instead of continuing to expand. That's the reason why we got all these marks. I mean, you got in the federal government, you got like 2.3, 2.4 million that are working there. And you got all the state governments, which is another 20 million in the United
Yeah.
States. They
Yeah.
say we have a lot think about that. So you got about 22, 24 million out of what, 330 or whatever. So about one out of every
Isn't
13
it like,
persons.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, isn't it like 30% of the working population is government?
Let's see. So it's 20. Okay. So whatever 25 divided by 160 million is. So, I mean, so
Yeah,
one
good luck.
eighth is 20. What 20 divided by
How
160
many
is one
zeros
eighth.
in that?
It's like 15. But it's probably around 15 to 17. It's about one in every six people that are working for the government in some various it's huge. It's and the rest of the pot. So the rest of society has to pay for the government that's abusing us on a regular basis. And half of them are teachers, by the way. It's like 11
And all
million.
they're trying to do, including the Republicans, is expand it.
Yeah,
Like, they
yeah.
get on TV and they say, "We want smaller government, we want less government, we want this, we want that." And then they go in, close the doors and say, "Ha, we got them."
And then jack up the spending,
Yeah,
And they
they
say, "Oh,
leave us.
we're not."
It's all right.
Yeah.
We're good to go. This is
They
the
say
old
we
Hunter
spend.
Biden thumbs up.
Yeah, we spend more money, and then get it, and they say, "Well, we have to spend more money." I was like, "Oh, we need to spend." Oh, so where's it coming from? You, everybody,
I
we're
was
just making.
watching I
Yeah,
was watching a history documentary the other day about World War II, and it was like really going deep into the the experiments. And they experimented with boiling people to death. Like, literally boiling people to death. And of course they came to, smart Nazis, they came to the realization that that wasn't going to be very effective. Okay. So thank God that they thought that wasn't going to be very effective, because could you imagine? But it's exactly what Alex Jones has been saying. We're like, we're the frogs. We're the freaking Nazi science projects. We are the frogs, and they are we are
yeah.
the biggest, remember that song? All we need is a great big melting pot. Remember that song?
I'm trying to think. No, I don't. I don't remember. That doesn't
Oh,
mean it shouldn't.
come
But go ahead.
on. That's,
Go ahead.
uh, what was how does the rest of it go? What we need is a great big melting pot. Big enough, big enough, big enough to take the world and all it's got. Keep it stirring for 100 years or more. And turn out coffee-colored people by the score.
Oh God, that's.
So
Uh,
so this is
don't
a very old song, but where did the root of the song come from? This is what they're trying to do. They don't want white coffee.
They just well what they want is just amorphous. They don't want culture. They
No,
want tech. They want they but they were actually what they want is just technocracy, and they just see us as just widgets to put in the. And if you're not an effective widget, they'll
more
eventually get rid
ingredients
of
to
you.
the pot. That's right.
Yeah, and the less amorphous that we are, and not less differentiated. So
But
and
if
wider.
anybody needs to be boiled in a pot, it's these people that are doing it.
Yeah, and the funny thing is about you while you're saying about the white and the black. Yeah, we know that you notice when you go to Switzerland or Davos. I mean, yeah, they do have some
Imports.
Africans and Middle Eastern descent people there, but the vast majority of the most loudest, proudest, and idiotic people are white. Julie Inman
Well,
Grant from Australia.
according to AI, the Vikings were black. So,
Yeah, yeah.
Jason.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah. They just see us all as just amorphous amoebas, and if we're incapable of being useful to their overall agenda. So yeah,
Mm,
uh, we're not high. Well, yeah. Well, eventually with the depopulation, if they can get rid of anybody who can resist, and they probably see certain white folks as being the most antagonistic or resistant, so that's the reason why they're attacking us the most, because if they can submit us
mhm.
it's the most okay, because you look at different cultures. I mean, okay, so I'm not saying all Asians are especially the Japanese and the Chinese, but they're very hierarchical, and they do respect their hierarchy. And yeah, when they have big uprisings, it turns into a total. I mean, they kill fest.
Mm.
Uh, but we usually get there much quicker than they do because they're more willing to tolerate. I'd say we're less tolerant as a overall culture, Western cultures. And that's the reason why they're working so hard, because they want the China model. They want the China model, very docile.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't want us to put up a fight. I mean, let's face it. And that's why, I mean, COVID, getting back to COVID, that was a golden opportunity. It's like, let's see how far and how far we can push this, see how far we can go to snap this entire scenario.
Well, I was thinking earlier on when we were talking about, the 1960s and this and that and the other and how it was good and rah, rah, rah. I was trying to like relate that to like COVID, because if you think about it, maybe what they thought was, because everybody was going good in Trump. That's a fact now. Everybody is saying it. It's been written in the statistics, blah, blah, blah. Maybe they just sort of said, whoa, everybody's like good, right? So do you think it was like a let's snap you back moment? Or do you think it was an accidental release taken advantage of? And because they had already been working on the vaccines for 10 years, that's how they were able to, that's how Fauci was able to go to Trump and say, we're going to start working on a vaccine straight away. Trust me, I know them. I know the best people, top men. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, okay. So if you want to use Alex Jones as a jump off point, they've had the plan for a long time. I think that it's like a project management thing. They get to a certain point, and uh, but they're always Hegelian about it. So you got Hillary and you got Trump, and they looked at and they know they got to take down the United States, because the United States was, you know, it's a narrative of the shining city on the hill, the freedom, all that kind of stuff. Even though we aren't so free, there's a lot of places that are, we were the, like he says, the best house on a bad block, in many cases. But that's because most of Western Civ has decided, we lost our way, especially after 2008, and
Yep.
and they were very scared of us after 2008, because because of the pitchfork mob, the Occupy Wall Street, and the Tea Party movement came out
Yeah,
because of all
but
the
who
fucking.
sponsored all of that shit? That was all Obama. Like,
Well, okay, no,
Obama created that
no, 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 no.
mood.
Well, no, no. He created the dichotomy. There was a split. The populist groups split, but what he created was the racial componentry that because when they that's probably when they decided, one of the things they decided. Okay, so Hillary got upended. They said, well, yeah, we don't want a woman at this point, but if we bring in a black person into the U.S., as a chief executive, Hopi changey, I'll retransform against an old white fool like
And
John
it
McCain,
worked.
and it worked. And the people on Wall Street, and this goes to Vivek Ramaswamy. I'm gonna go with, okay. So there's lots of theses, lots of what do you say, scenarios here. So Vivek Ramaswamy wrote this in his book. I'm not supporting. I know he's a hustler. I know he's got slickness, all that shit. But he isn't wrong about it. And just because a guy, you don't like him all the time about everything, doesn't mean he isn't wrong, right about some things. He did mention that Wall Street made a kind of a devil's bargain to try to introduce a lot of this wokeness shit in there. They the BLM, the whole cadre of feminism, the radical trans. I mean, they decided to say, we're going to toggle from meritocracy to, if you haven't gotten anywhere before and it's not based upon your merit, it's based upon just what you look like, we'll shove you into our corporations, because they didn't care, because the Fed had 0% interest rates. They were printing money. Just gonna, if the interest rates stay really low, they were going with that. This was the precursor of the MMT. Debts don't matter. So they just printed up money that buttressed and kept the banks happy. The banks were happy as clams. As long as they're doing good, everybody else is. All the social media grew well and all that other stuff. And they kept us distracted. Even though we all saw it little by little, we started saying,
Yeah.
why is all this stupid shit coming? Why why are we saying, okay, if you're a male, you can go use a woman's bathroom?
Yeah.
Why are we doing all that? But they did that. Wall Street, well, again, this is top down. They call it. Rob Henderson introduced this concept called luxury. Well, not he's done a thesis on this called luxury beliefs. So the people at the top said, "Hey, we got to get these people distracted. We got to get them fighting against each other." And then Trump comes along, and Trump wants to basically bring us back to basically the mid '90s, maybe 1980s, in terms of philosophy. The funny thing is he's actually very supportive of gay rights, but that gets ignored a lot.
Yeah, that's right.
And he was a business Democrat. They forget about that. Forget that
Exactly.
they supported him up until the
There's
time when he took
numerous photos of him with countless Democrats. Numerous. Thousands.
And then he worked with Jesse Jackson and stuff like that in 1999. He was working in New York City, and it wasn't him. They needed him to be a fall guy. But America was, I mean, the populace, both especially on the more conservative side, said, "Hey, if he's willing to take on the Bushes, well, we're fucking tired of them. We don't need another fucking Bush. We need another Bush, like we need another hole in our head." Because all they saw was Jeb Bush, he'll take you to war. Hillary Clinton, well, yeah, we know she's going to take you to fucking war. And so everybody was like, "No more wars. We're tired of that shit." And of course, the deep state doesn't. So at some point, there was a Hegelian moment where they probably picked between those two. They're like, no, in October 2020, when they couldn't hijack him, and Hillary didn't go out and campaign at all, but they brought up the whole
she was
grab
fucking
her
passing out in the street.
Yeah, grab her by the hoo-ha moment with Billy Bush.
Billy Bush.
Yep, the Billy Bush moment. And they thought they had it in the bag. They were like, "Hey, these women aren't going to ever vote for him." And for the most part, that was true because they figured their propaganda had worked well. Didn't work. And, it's been stated with Brexit and Trump and all this other shit. There was a big populist move. That's what they hate. They hate populism. They hate nationalism. They hate the globalists, obviously, hate all that stuff because they want you to be obedient little slaves to everything they've been putting together for the last 35, 40, 100 years, depending upon how you look at it. And they said, fuck it. Okay, since we got Trump in, or since Trump is in, we'll do everything we can to hijack him. And not only that, the best time to do something sometimes is while he's in, because he was oblivious to how everything operated. I mean, look, he's a neophyte to politics.
And we know that the people that he had around him weren't giving him
They were third stringers. I mentioned, you remember David, I mentioned that he said, no, he's like, Mnuchin and no. Those are globalist clowns. And they just, they signed on because they're like, okay, I need a grift paycheck. And Trump was just picking them based upon reputation. Thought they would be good Americans. They aren't Americans.
Yeah, and tried to unite the parties by hiring people that were a little lefty.
Yeah. And then he got a lot of flack because he hired Jared Kushner and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that was necessarily the best hire ever with his dad's problems.
No, I know. But wasn't he a Democrat darling before Trump and before he married Ivanka?
Well, that's the thing. The thing is that sort of thing. When they say, oh, he's far right, that was just a con and sucker for all of us that they wanted us to swallow. That's what But, they did that with the media propaganda. And we know about the whole, they changed the propaganda rules in 2012 so they could propagandize to our public, the national security. So the media turned all their propaganda internally onto us to get us to bring in. I mean, it's worked in the liberal cities. I mean, you can see the difference between trust in media. And you have the same problem down under too. You probably certain aspects, some people totally dismiss the media, and other people, they live and die by it. So I think there's been they saw it as an opportunity. It's like, look, he's not going to be the wiser to his powers and how he can deploy them quite yet. And if we keep him constantly under pressure with impeachment, COC, and investigations and all this other shit, what little he can get accomplished. And of course, he didn't really go after any foreign wars. But that also pissed them off too, because it's like, come on, man, start a war.
Give us something.
Yeah, yeah. Give us a war. We need a bigger war in the Middle East. Not that he wanted anything
Promise
down.
will be good.
Yeah, give us a war at Iran. I mean, granted, they didn't like his backing out of treaties and stuff like that. They don't want him to exercise any power. They wanted to
But see,
be.
the thing that they don't understand is it doesn't matter. It's not about what they like him to do.
They don't give a shit.
It's
Yeah,
about
I know.
what we want him to do.
Uh-huh.
We, the people.
And we didn't get what we wanted either, but they don't give a shit. They don't care about, they don't, yeah. Remember, these people are beyond, they're so selfish. They don't care about any of us.
Yeah,
See,
it
they
is.
see
It's
us as,
unbelievable.
I mean, believe me, if they could, I bet you they're Thanos. If they could snap their fingers tomorrow and get rid of 100 million MAGA people and get rid of 12 million Australians and
Yeah,
get rid of, they would
the
do it.
MAGA people would go first.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, because all the people with guns were the last rodeo. Because once they get rid of the guns here, they're even rounding up butter knives in Britain and everywhere
Wouldn't it be
else.
funny? Yeah, wouldn't it be funny if they did a Thanos, right, and they snapped their fingers, and most of the Democrats were gone as well?
God,
Like,
yeah,
because really the Democrats are actually conservatives.
they,
Deep down, they're
yeah,
conservatives. They know that they're conservatives for their own stuff. So deep
yeah.
down, everybody's a conservative.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, everybody's happy with other people. Yeah. Everybody's happy with someone else's misery as long as it's not their own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And yeah.
Thanos,
And of course,
so they can invite Thanos, but they risk going themselves.
yeah. And then you got the window of opportunity that the Chinese feel. Like even Jones has come around. Well, he's true. So there was like a devil's bargain. They were like, okay, China. Think about it. Look at how how much of a slave COVID's back in the news, of course, because all the COVIDiots and the hard lockdowners are coming out with their mea culpas and trying to reshape the narrative. Like Cuomo tonight, I saw there was someone posted. So Andrew Cuomo is talking with Leana Wen. The lady
Mhm.
says, "Oh, you'll have all these rights you'll get back if you just get vaccine and wear your mask." And she's the little
Yes.
crisis guy. Oh, she's a bitch. So straight up cunt. Sorry. I hate to use that.
Such a bitch.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She was selling that hard. But yeah, so all they're trying to suddenly, because you remember this is all timed and coordinated because so you had what's his face? Chris Cuomo comes out and says, "Oh,
Mhm.
I'm vaccine injured. I got."
I
It's like,
know.
oh yeah,
I know.
yeah,
The nerve
yeah,
of him. Like,
yeah,
right? The nerve of
yeah.
him to come out and
You
say, "Oh, vaccine injured."
Yeah. It's
After
like,
he fucking made millions off the fucking vaccine with this stupid little show.
but what don't we look like? We live in the whole what do you call it? Victimhood mentality. If you can play that violin for someone really good,
Well,
voila.
I was at the doctor's today with my mother. I saw the newspaper in the coffee shop, and like one of the main headlines was the cancer rising in young people. Said within uh what did they say? Within 50 years, there will be a cancer epidemic among the young, right? Now, tell me how are they fucking predicting this shit? Because there's a
Hmm.
rise in fucking cancer. And what are they not saying? What are they not saying? Because the fucking jab.
Yeah,
100% safe and effective. We promise. Now all your
yeah.
kids are going to die.
I
Like,
know.
what the fuck?
And the
Fuck
whole
you.
time
Yeah,
they were doing that, and
exactly.
they were doing that the whole time.
I'm
They're
gonna
crossing.
do. I'm gonna steal something from Dan Bongino, and I'm gonna say the double-barreled
Yeah.
finger for you
Hmm.
bastards that have mercilessly poisoned our fucking children and our fucking futures. Not mine, thank God, because I refuse to let my children get it, or myself, or my mother. But none of
Yeah.
the rest of my family are all vaccinated. So, and you know that, Jason. All the rest of them, they wouldn't listen to me, or they couldn't listen to me because they were forced to, because job.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, you know what? You know my predicament. So now that
Yeah.
led to my hunter obsession, I guess, because, in the whole documenting this whole bullshit, all this bullshit that's hit, the world, the fact that we are living through this time and actually have survived it,
Mm-hmm.
and I think over and over, and I haven't mentioned it, but that I'm going to write towards this idea though, because it's important. So there are a lot of people, we were looking at the statistics the other day that, on the world meter, they said 7 million died of COVID.
Yeah, that's right.
So something like 7 million. Yeah. So think about this way, in seven, according to them, 7 million. So how many of those, of that 7 million, ever knew what the ultimate, we know the ultimate agenda pretty much, as much
Mm-hmm.
as, everybody else does that pays enough attention and knows that this was not normal. But how many of those, died before they even knew, between COVID and everything that was going on and all
Probably
this?
all of them.
Well, I mean, it's just the concept of, imagine dying for this in 2020, dying in 2020 and not knowing that A was released out of the lab, or conveniently, I know people, okay, so there's people out there on this you want to be antithetical. So I will say this. I have always said this. Yes, there was a release. I think they did it on purpose. They designed it, but they designed it for the vaccine. They had to get the numbers up in certain areas, and they used the most abominable treatment available to get the numbers to where they wanted them, which was the remdesivir, the ventilators, the you know stress, lockdown, every
Yeah.
conceivable method to
Yeah.
make it so that people would eventually give up or die,
Give up.
or actually
Yeah.
get and not treat them appropriately.
Yeah.
So, and that's just murder. And
Yeah.
you got
Plain
these
and
doctors.
simple.
Yeah, and there were doctors that went, and there are doctors that are still oblivious to the fact that they did this, or
Mm-hmm.
they can't resolve it in their mind that they actually went along with this shit. And there's
Mm-hmm.
others that are well aware of it, and they know why they went along with it was to keep their job, to keep the
Oh,
administrators
if
happy.
I if I had if I had my time over again, I'd say a few things to my old doctor for
Yeah,
sure. Because
and so yeah,
I mean, she's partially responsible for it as well. She was a
mm,
willing participant. She literally refused to let anybody in her office that was unvaccinated.
there you
So,
go.
you tell me, if she was fully satisfied that this fucking thing was safe and effective, right? Do we have the opportunity to back that statement by looking at her patients' chronic illnesses since they've been vaccinated?
Yeah, do a study, percentage studies before and after. You can take it. That's the thing. And with the rise of, like you said, turbo cancers, these freaky, and and remember the 9 pages of documentation that the
Mhm.
Pfizer put out that had
Yep.
every damn thing.
Thousands of bloody different. Yep.
Yeah, shit that you had to look up and figure out what the hell they were, what the hell kind of disease was this, and they
Yep.
just they that was, and they're not held accountable.
Not at all.
And then we get into the nuances, and everybody said, "Well, why didn't everybody get it?" I go, "Well, because some people got jabs that were were held at the right temperature, and therefore, when it was inserted into you, it actually had the effect they were going for. And other people got jabs that had degraded, and the stuff they jabbed in you was garbage, and it didn't have the effect they wanted." So,
But not
and
only that, it might not have had the immediate effect just because it was degraded, but they don't know the long-term effects, even
well,
if
you
it
don't
is
know what you don't know.
degraded. That's
Yeah, well,
right.
we were guinea pigs. Yeah, they didn't
Yep.
know what they didn't know, and they were just
Yep.
gonna go ahead and introduce it into a human cell,
And
a body, and let it go.
And even on that point itself, the temperature had to be right.
Yeah.
Now, do you remember at the height of these injections rolling out, and they had the big tents set up in the car parks and cars lined up, right? How did they have those vaccines stored? In boxes next to them under the hot tarpaulin,
That's right.
right?
They're supposed to be super cold. It's
It was
cold as
supposed to be
hell.
like, minus 37 degrees or some
Yeah,
crap like that.
yeah, it had to be kept at a certain very low, basically cryogenic almost, and it had to be used in a certain time frame, or else couldn't. Yeah,
And they had said that at the very beginning when these vaccines were coming out. They were talking a lot about the temperature of them. They're stored in blah, 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 blah. And then I saw all of these news reels about people like getting injected in car parks and parking lots and shit.
I saw them
It's
set it
like,
up here. Yeah,
that's how it was set up here too.
I was like,
As
why?
well.
So that is the. And it goes to Simon Goddick did a nice. I shared it on where we share things,
Yep.
and it went through all these different things that let you know how much fuckery they did to us, and you start looking at that, and you're like, yeah, they were just playing the biggest con ever on humanity with that, and they were just seeing how far they could push it and see how much compliance they could get and see, and they didn't get what they wanted, but they got a lot of what they wanted, and that was a
Yeah.
win too, because the rest of us are so angry and frustrated with government and idea, and where I'm at on that. It's like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
if we could, we got 430. America has 438 agencies. And to put that in perspective, the Nazis only had 45 when they were running their operation. So figure that all out.
Bannon keeps saying take down the CCP, but like you take down your own fucking government first.
Yeah, you're right.
That's the only way
It's
you're
sort
going
of
to
like,
get to the
let,
CCP.
let's just say I want to get out my hedge trimmers and start just going to town, and then I want to get it down to a little itty bitty nub.
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
that. And the
Yeah.
CCP, we're doing all the work. I mean, well, that's part of the whole thing with the Bidens. I mean, they're there's so much idiocy. It's so overtly treasonous and everything else in between. No one just says, yeah, let's just open and the fact that we have people that are saying, oh, we need to let these people just let them wander all in. The thing is that's that's just unbelievable that's even a conversation. It's like
The
does
point,
China
like,
let them all wander in?
okay, so you go to the Middle East and there's fucking borders. Like there's
Mm.
borders, there's fucking machine guns, there's fucking all sorts
Yeah,
of shit, right?
they don't ask questions. If you join to jump across, fine, they'll just go ahead and take care of you, and that's
Yeah,
it.
that's right. That's right. But like people say, oh, but they're like this, they're these sort of horrible people. They're totalitarians and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, um, you're letting those people in. You're letting those people in. The people that they don't want.
Mhm.
So like,
Yeah, the order. Okay, you know, stability, and this goes to bigger, but stability it should be valued. Stability has to be valued because when things get too unstable with everything that's going on, that's why they call it destabilization. It gets to such a point that then it reaches a crisis, and of course, we from Yuri Bezmenov, normalization. The normalization of communism, normalization of fascism, normalization of just there's no law, there's no order, you can't turn to anybody, you can't even be self-reliant, because if you're self-reliant then you're a threat to the state. So and I'm not a state. I when I say I'm not, yeah, I know that there was all that's the beauty of that was the beauty of the comment. It was supposed to be a limited government, and the federal government only has to have so many powers. The states, each individual state, any individual United State was supposed to have its powers. Healthcare wasn't not supposed to be run by the central planners and all this other stuff. And you're supposed to limit government, but you're also limit positions, and you're supposed to limit agencies. And we're not supposed to, they mentioned department 5 times in the Constitution. They don't mention agency 1 time in the entire US
Yeah,
Constitution. I looked at it, I didn't find. So those things were never defined like that, and it was never meant to be that way. There was supposed to be it was supposed to be, these are the principles we were supposed to agree upon. And yes, we changed it through amendments, and we had to through the Civil War, and there was a good reason for that. And it was sad that we had to go through the process of undoing a cardinal sin of slavery. But slavery has been, we know it's been existent forever in the world history. It's hard to just get anyone free, not just one person free. And there's lessons to be learned from that. And we finally somewhat learned the lesson. And then the people that didn't learn the lesson or decided that, well, that we can't have that, because you got to keep the problem. That's what we're living in. We got to keep the problem. They don't want you or me.
People. Otherwise, if we heal the people from their sicknesses, we won't have any patients.
Yeah, there'll be no money. There'll be no grift. We can't keep the Ponzi scheme going. So like me and you, yeah, they don't want us to have our best life. They want us to have. They got to keep us maintenance to sickness. In sickness and in sickness, not in sickness.
They want us to think. They want us to think that mediocre is great.
Mediocre. Yeah. That's the pitch now. Mediocre is great. Be happy you have the very few of any rights that you have.
Yeah.
Instead of being into, and what's really messed up is how long did we went through school systems. How long in life have we dealt with people that we've had to say, look, you got to get over it. You have to move. You have to take responsibility or accountability for anything that happens to you at some point. And it's hard. I mean, and I'm a failure at this too. But I remember what's his face? He's a Navy SEAL, and he wrote a book tied to the fact of being totally accountable. So whether failure or success, you're accountable for the failures, and you're supposed to do after action reports and figure out how you can improve upon the things you didn't do well or failed completely at. And you should spread the successes around to everybody who was a part of the successes, so everybody will know that every little bit of effort they did made the operation work well.
Yeah.
Which is what, like this, if it wasn't for you, so audience, so we only got 10 people watching. So, me and Liz were setting this up yesterday. I'd never been on a Rumble studio, and we were trying to test things out and it's really simple, but it isn't so simple if you've never done a live stream together from, and setting up the mics and knowing how to turn something on and turn it off. We even tried, was it Streamlabs or whatever? We thought we were going to have to run it through that. Talk Labs. Yeah. So, yeah. So, but we had to work on it, and we failed initially, and then we got off that, and then we moved over here, and then we finally got it to work together. It seems like a simple operation, but we all know that it isn't quite that simple always.
Yeah.
And
I just got used to my Streamlabs.
Yeah. And I came over and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe we can do it this way, or this is how we should do it. And then she told me to turn, I couldn't get my camera to turn on, and I had to go into I didn't even think about it as like something as simple as just my settings and turning it on and turning it off, and then voila, I appeared on the screen. So we had to work together to come to, get a success out of this, or else you wouldn't be seeing us right now. But here we are. Yeah. And the thing is our globalist clowns don't even they're used to having people to set up everything for them. And can you think about, could Joe Biden set up one of his streams? He's the president of the United States. Could he set this up?
No. Could he even turn on the computer?
Yeah.
You see him looking at his phone going like this.
Yeah. Troubleshooting,
Gosh, he's probably playing Sudoku or something.
Yeah. And this is the
trouble. Get that brain active.
Get that brain active. And we're Yeah, but now we know our governments aren't troubleshooting anything. They're troublemaking everything
Mm.
at our expenses and making us
Yeah,
pay for it and then smiling at us and saying,
exactly. Yeah. And hand over the cash while you're at it. Bend over and hand over the cash.
yeah, I mean, we're being pimped. We are the prostitutes and they're the pimps.
Yeah, but at least the prostitute gets 10% most of the time.
Yeah,
It's only the big guy getting 10%, and the government gets the rest.
yeah. And then they're taking it and they say, "Oh, so we took the money from you. We're going to give it to somebody who just got here, who has no idea." And then we find out. Well, at least here
And
now,
you're gonna love it.
and you're going to love it. And they go to these big cities and they complain about it to the people there. They're like, "Well, I don't like my hotel."
Yeah. I don't think it's fair that I should have to move out after 3 months and get a job. What'd you
and
come
the
here for?
and
What did you come here for? Did
there
you
you go.
think the welfare system, like, seriously? If you wanted a better welfare system, you should have fucking floated your way over to Australia, mate, because we've got a way better welfare system. What can I tell you?
Yeah, exactly. And then and everybody said, "Well, you destroyed their country." There's the naysayers here, like, "Well, you destroyed South America or Africa and stuff like that." It's like, no, I did not do that.
Mm,
Do I agree that my government, who does things unbeknownst to me, and people they hire NGOs to do those things, and they ship arms to fund wars over, and they so I did the analysis recently with like the Palestine and so funding both sides of the conflict
mhm.
to
Yeah,
keep them at each other's throat. and
yeah.
and if the people that are involved in this conflict actually would pay attention to who's that they knew that the same entities are funding both sides of the conflict, then maybe they would get together and say, why are we fighting each other? We're being triangulated by an outside force who's saying, yeah, here's your submachine gun and here's your grenade. Now blow each other up.
Yeah, because the only people that do know what's going on are the people sending the young people out to fight. They're not dying. These people that know what's going on aren't dying.
No.
It's
Yeah.
the soldiers that, like, the soldiers, give the soldiers a computer on the Russian front and see if they don't bloody Google who's fucking paying for their bombs.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
And
mean? It's like they have no information. All they know is shoot to kill.
in knowing that, Russia's a thug, and you think of that. Yeah, we know Putin's a thug. We know our people are thugs, or the U.S. is thugs, and we know Ukraine's full of corrupt thugs. And we know that China's full of corrupt thugs, and I mean, literally, we know China has corrupt thugs because we have a guy that used to be working with Hunter Biden, and Hunter Biden wrote him sweetheart letters. He was like, "Oh, Chairman Yi, I am so honored to write you. Please send me more money so I can do this shit." And no, now he doesn't write any love letters to Chairman G because Chairman G is gone. He went bye-bye.
Mhm.
And guess what? We have this going on all over the world. And people want to continue to bury their head in the sand and say, you're just being a conspiracy theorist. It's like, if I'm a conspiracy theorist, then go find this guy. He was worth 40. He was like, at one point, he was listed like worth like $40 billion or whatever. Same way with Jack Ma. He disappeared for 3 months. He said the wrong thing about Xi Jinping, and they said, okay,
Were
off
we
to the
were we conspiracy theorists when we said that the FBI set up Trump with the documents, with the classified documents? Were we conspiracy theorists then? Yes, we were. But guess what? No, we're not.
Yeah, it's the time from the time frame between us being right about something and it getting out is now down to months, which
Yeah,
means I mean
yeah.
within months of what we
Well,
said.
I mean, this is all this new redacted stuff that Judge Cannon's been bringing out, that we found
Yeah,
out that they've been playing that they've been playing this whole documents thing from the beginning.
yeah,
It's ridiculous.
and this
I
is
honestly, I think that Trump should take a civil suit out on the government, on the FBI.
well, you can go through the tort. There's a tort act, but yeah, like anything else,
Not
money.
while he's trying to run for president.
Yeah. It's going to be kind of hard. Well, Well, if for example, his property or think about it in some entity, I don't know. So if they were in the Mar-a-Lago could, for trying to,
Oh yeah, they could. The trust, the board.
yeah, something along that lines. Just that
Mm,
would give them arms. It's like an arm's length thing. I don't know. I'm sure there's some
maybe.
lawyer out there that there should be some creative
I
lawyer.
heard that. I heard something about Eric Trump doing something, but that's neither here nor there at the moment because anything that they try to do is
Well,
anyway, as we know. But I
yeah.
think we should probably wrap it up, Jason. We're at 2 hours and 44 minutes.
Yes, we are. And we've managed to keep a consistent about 10 bodies watching us.
Yeah. Thank you for joining, guys. Pity there was
I,
no questions. It would have been nice to
yeah.
see that somebody's like wanting to do their own digging.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is just you get started on something, and sometimes you peel back the right layers, and voila, it comes like it was. And I ended just on the hunter part of it. Just when I started, I didn't really think I just peeled back who owned Magnolia LNG. Then I found out that thing got passed through in a matter of a couple months and went through 2 winning bids that got suddenly just yanked, and one of them was really high, and then it gets into the hands of some also ran Glenfarne. I'm like, who the hell is this Glenfarne group? And then I started digging into that, and it just started with SEC. Next thing you know, I'm peeling back the rabbit hole of lawyers and con men, and then going into all the crazy stuff that
And they were all sort of names that have been thrown around amongst all these depositions and stuff like that, and like Hillary
Mhm.
and Bill and all of that drama.
Mhm.
But all right, let's just tell. Jason has got volumes and literally volumes of this stuff all on his socials. So Jason, give them your socials where they can find you on Twitter, on Substack, on anywhere else.
Well, I'm gonna put it in the chat, and let's see if I can. So I put a link in the chat. That's to the
Okay, we'll
book.
put it. Don't put it in the live chat. Put it in the comments underneath because that will disappear.
Disappear. So yeah, I put it there. So I'm on Jason Powers at Substack.com or at .substack.com. So Jason Powers Substack.com dot.
Or just
I'll
go
put
to Substack and type in Jason Powers or DCF. Is it Jason Powers or DCF Press on Substack?
I'll put the link. I'll put the link below in your thing. So it's jasonpowers.substack.com, and they got a few other. So I did some investigation into the COVID crisis too, and you'll see some interesting things. When I say interesting things in that investigation, so actually I did start with something that was tied to Hunter because he was tied to Metabiota. And Metabiota was tied to the likes of Peter Daszak, who I worked with.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So there was a overlap there, and it didn't surprise you. Shouldn't surprise you. So think of Glenfarne a little bit like Moderna. So if you go backwards, Moderna, no one had heard of Moderna until they got a big government contract to push the vaccine. They hadn't approved anything through the FDA. And technically didn't.
They had failed a couple of things from what I believe.
Oh yeah, yeah. And they got all the support from the NIH. They got a patent from the NIH that got sent to Bill Gates, funded them. Robert Langer was the founder of Moderna, and he was the big muckety muck at FDA. He's supposedly this super genius. I maybe suggest he's a super evil genius, but nevertheless, he worked for MIT and stuff like that. So yeah. So there's a whole host of things to be discovered there, and there's a big article. It's ARPA-H is tied to that scenario, but that's like you can look at the top articles, and I've written some things that you really like, and then I've written a lot of opinion pieces and stuff like that. So that's my website.
There's stacks to choose from his Substack, but also you are on X at DCF
DCF Press. Yep.
And I think you're on the other socials under the same name, right?
Getter, yes. I
Yep.
really just Twitter, X, and then Rumble here. I'm on at I'm gonna have to Deep Center Press. So if you put it in the search bar, you can probably find me that
Yep.
way.
Yep.
Which we know this is goofy because it'll probably come up as DCF Press on the
On
site,
your
even though
search.
on the search
Yep.
it's goofy.
It
We know
does.
Rumble's messed up. But no, thank you for having me on, Liz, and all the time to go through all that stuff. And for those
No
who
worries.
stayed the whole duration, hopefully you enjoyed our discussion of how this is an inside joke between me and Liz. So we didn't take over the world tonight, but
No, we didn't, Pinky.
okay, Brian. We'll try again next tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow is another day, as they say.
Yes.
All right. Well, we will sign off from here, guys. I'll say my good nights. And as always, we remind you to keep the faith. We want you to follow the facts and start preparing, because it's going to come a time where you might need to find the fight. All right. Have a great night, guys. MAGA out. Bye.
Bye-bye.